Yeah, because when he first came around.
I remember this.
I was having a hard time remembering his name then. And I said, you know what, I'm just going to call you Mason Jar. That way I can do the association.
I'm glad it helped.
And just right now, I'm like, oh my God. Because I don't see you very often because I'm not here very often. Yeah. So anyway, and then of course there's Mac Maury over there. When the
moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's
Mac Maury.
Happy Friday, Pamela.
Happy Friday to you as well.
Good to see you.
Thank you. You as well. This will be the last time we see each other for quite some time, guys.
Stop.
I'm having total knee replacement.
Ooh, oh my gosh. Yeah, you've been telling me about this. This is big.
This is a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had no idea, and we'll get into serious stuff. Trust me.
This is serious. Don't.
It is. Yeah, it is. But we'll talk about Hunter Biden. We'll talk about school choice. We'll talk about a lot of things. But I didn't know that there is such a thing called white coat
syndrome?
Yes.
Yeah.
White coat syndrome. I've learned that I suffer from white coat syndrome.
I'm right there with you. It hits me hard every time.
So I go in for because a week out we do kind of some pre-op stuff where I get all of my instructions and all my things and all this stuff. And I actually went in. I thought I was fine till they took my blood pressure. And when they took my blood pressure, it was skyrocketing. I mean, it was off the charts. You're thinking, oh, Pam's about to have a stroke. I mean, it was like 200 over something, right? It was terrible. It was bad. And so they said, is this normal? And I said, no, it's not. I mean, I'm on blood pressure medication. It shouldn't be this high, blah, 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 blah. And they said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you a Xanax, put it under your tongue so it will get into your system quickly, and we will test your blood pressure in 30 minutes.
Interesting.
They tested it in 30 minutes, and I was fine after the Xanax.
I've never been given a Xanax for that. Interesting.
For white coat syndrome?
Yeah, they always tell me to go, just chill out. Don't stop it.
Yes, because just saying chill out makes me chill out immediately.
Yeah.
So at any rate, that's what's going on. Is somebody wanting to get on the air? Is that what that phone call was?
No, it was just
gotcha.
Mr. Brian Wilson checking in, making sure everything's okay.
Everything's going well. All right. Well, thank you, Brian, for checking in on us. We appreciate it. But get back to he's got a big shindig tomorrow.
Yeah.
A big party.
Old party.
You were invited, right?
No, I'm not.
Oh man, yes, would you like to go?
I would like to, but I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna take that from Brian. That is his invitation to extend for sure.
But maybe I need a date. I don't know.
There we go.
I'm joking.
It's all good.
I have a date. He would probably get a little ticked. So at any rate, he's doing the big party tomorrow. It should be a lot of fun. And then he'll be back on Monday. So I think he needs to not worry about the show. It's in good hands. All right. So one of the things that we will talk about later in the program, we'll have the Deputy Director of Americans for Prosperity, Tennessee. Full disclosure, I do work for that company, but I don't know everything that Michael Lotfy is going to say, but he's going to be in the studio today. And the reason why is because there have been concerns raised about the governor's proposal on school choice. And we want to deal with that. But here's a for instance, though. There's some really kind of boneheaded things that are said. For instance, I'm looking at a tweet from the mayor of Jackson, Tennessee, who is not exactly a fan of the governor's proposal on education's, what does he call it? Educational freedom scholarships. He's not a fan. So this is what he said. The average annual tuition for private schools in Jackson, Tennessee is $9,227. How is a $7,000 voucher going to help economically disadvantaged students? Well, perhaps if the economically disadvantaged family wants to send their kid to private schools, all they have to do is come up with an extra $2,000 a year. If they have $7,000, that could send them to a private school. If that's what the parents wanted to do, they could homeschool. They could send them to another public school in that county or maybe in an adjacent county and use the $7,000 for transportation costs, tutor costs. There's all kinds of ways that a disadvantaged family who has a so-called disadvantaged student could use that. So I don't exactly understand why that it's hard for some people to understand. And then there are some genuine concerns about government overreach if there is a program that the government is offering. And I get that. So we're going to address a lot of that stuff today. So I want you to stick around for that. I'm going to take all of these phones off hold. Or actually, can you do that, Mason Jar? If you could take all the phones off hold, anybody can call at any time because I know that they normally call this, Phone Your Farb Friday. Now, I don't know that I could call myself your Farb because that's Brian's nickname. So, but if you want to call me a Farb, Furr, you're more than welcome to do that. But we also, and I didn't even prepare you for this, when I'm on Fridays, there is something that we like to call Freak Out Friday. Nope, I didn't prepare you for it.
I don't have it. I'm looking.
All right, that's all right. We'll find it when we actually do it. So we'll open up the phone lines at some point during the afternoon for Freak Out Friday, if he can find the theme music to that. Meanwhile, we have, of course, information about one Hunter Biden and about all the things that he has been involved in, because now he's facing charges, right? Fresh indictment of 9 criminal charges filed against the president's son yesterday. I think it was breaking news in the yesterday afternoon. And I got to tell you, I know that the wild spending is something that a lot of people talk about. Like the, $200,000 in ATM cash withdrawals he took in 2016, $500,000 in 2017, $700,000 in 2018, $700,000 in 2019. I mean, that's a lot. Well, what are you doing? Payments to various women. You see $4,000 in 2016, 2017, $138,000. You've got clothes, you've got tuition, education, health and beauty. I mean, this man spent $54,000 on health and beauty products. Hello. Food and grocery, insurance. You've got all of these things that are listed as expenses for one Hunter Biden, his 4 years of wild spending. And of course, I know they've talked about it all day long. Hunter paid for adult entertainment. I got to tell you something. And maybe this is the libertarian in me. I don't care. If he wants to spend his money on high class or even low class prostitutes, you go for it. As long as they're all consenting adults, you do what you want to do with your money that you earned. Oh, wait. That you earned in a legal way. Maybe I should add that caveat. You do what you want to do. I don't care. I mean, it is kind of interesting to see how the rich play, but I don't care. What I do care about is the fact that he's been able to get away with it year after year after year and not pay his fair share in taxes. When this is what the Democrats and this is what the Bidens preach to you and me all the time. You hear Joe Biden talk about the wealthy need to pay their fair of taxes and they want to penalize the wealthy for actually being capitalists and making money and earning money the right way. They want to punish them by making them pay more taxes. Taxes on the wealthy. And yet they don't do it. They do everything they can to get around it. And now you have charges facing Joe Biden. I'm sorry, Hunter Biden. 9 charges. Are they going to go anywhere? I don't know. I'm so sick of the Hunter Biden narrative. I could almost vomit right here in the studio. I won't. Don't worry. But I'm so sick of it. The truth of the matter is, I believe that this has happened intentionally. Looking forward to 2024. I think it's happened intentionally to get Joe Biden out of the way. Because let's just be honest, if he pardons his son, I believe even Democrats are going to turn their back on Joe Biden. And you know he's going to pardon his son. Wouldn't you? If you were in that position, and you're not talking about murder charges, you're not talking about rape charges, you're talking about tax charges, wouldn't you pardon your kid? So I'm not blaming Joe Biden for even considering it, quite frankly, because I think you would too. But I don't know that he could run for president and pardon his son on tax charges. And I think that's the intention. Let's get him out of the way, because you get him out of the way, Kamala's out of the way. There's no way she can run on her own for president of the United States and win. She tried it once before and was a dismal failure. So there's no way she would even be a player if Joe Biden's out of the way. So who do you have? You have someone that they've been propping up for a couple of weeks now, a couple of months now, the name that keeps getting thrown out there, and he keeps making national news, and he keeps talking to people like Sean Hannity and does a little debate with Ron DeSantis, Gavin Newsom. I personally think all of this is to finally get Joe out of the way and get Gavin Newsom on the ballots in this country as the Democratic nominee for president of the United States. That's what I think. Maybe I'm crazy. I mean, the bigger story truly is, where did Hunter Biden get this money? It's corrupt money. We know that. You know that. The American people know this. That's the bigger story, not that he spent it all on hookers or, quote, various women or adult entertainment. You know what? If you're an adult and you want to be entertained in an adult way, have at it. You only have to answer to God for it, or if you're married, your spouse for it, or if you're in a relation, whatever. You know these things. Go for it. You're an adult. Do what you want to do. But where'd the money come from? That's the bigger story. That's the bigger thing here. All of this is just noise. Like I said, in my opinion, to put Gavin Newsom on the ticket as the Democratic nominee for president of the United States. 321, I'm Pamela Furr, in for Brian Wilson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Awaken 180 is my solution for weight loss.
Laughing, learning, friendships. Not the words normally associated with trying to lose weight. But with Awaken 180, you're not trying. Weekly weight loss while gaining the tools to keep it off. Free support for life, friends for life. Learn how over 17,000 clients succeeded with the solution for weight loss.
An update on the former President Donald Trump and his federal January 6th case. Crime in Tennessee, it revolves around an officer being hit by an alleged drunk driver. And we know about the abortion lawsuit in Texas. We'll talk about a new one coming up in Kentucky. 3:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you very much, Mac Maury. It is 3:26. I am Pamela Furr in for Brian Wilson. Thank you for being here today. We also call this, we ready? We ready? We also call it, when I'm around, Freak Out Friday. Yeah. And you can phone your FARB, Pamela, in the next segment if you'd like, 615-737-9986. One of the things that freaks your FARB Fur out is AI. I think I've told this before when I've been on the air here. Look, I love technology as much as the next guy. And there are some really great ways that AI technology can be used. However, there's really, really bad ways that AI can be used that could eventually destroy somebody's life. You can get rid of that. Tens of millions of people are now using an AI-powered, quote, and maybe I shouldn't be telling you this because you might, I don't know, you might grab it, but it's a Nudify app. More than 24 million people visited nudity AI websites in September, which digitally alter images, primarily women, to make them appear naked in the photo using deep learning algorithms. These algorithms are trained on existing images of women, which allow it to overlay realistic images of nude body parts, regardless of whether the photographed person is clothed or not. Now, look, again, to each his own. You like to see naked women. What man doesn't? Whatever. I like to see certain parts of a guy naked if he's got ripped abs, big guns, what girl doesn't? But if you're talking about putting a person that you know through this AI algorithm, whatever, it feels to me like a violation. Okay, it's not real, but it could be It could be real similar to what the real thing is. Isn't that a violation of somebody's privacy somewhere? I don't know. I have a real problem with this. And who's to say someone wouldn't use an AI image in a Nudify app just to screw with someone? Or say you're going through a divorce and you want to generate naked pictures that you're saying your wife sent to her boyfriend when she didn't do anything of the sort. And you end up with custody of your kids. Tell me that's not possible. Of course it is. I can go on and on down the list of other AI technologies where you could have somebody saying something that they never actually said. And what are we doing to ensure that something can be recognized as AI? Look, I've got a profile picture of myself on my socials that's AI generated. I wish I looked like that. But it's got me with like this greenery in my hair for Christmas and snow falling and what have you. It's fun, but I'm very clear. And if you know me, you know it's very clear. That ain't me. I don't look like that. I don't look that good. But it terrifies me. It freaks me out. Sometimes it keeps me awake at night at the danger of this wonderful technology. 3:30. I'm Pamela Furr in for Brian Wilson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.30 and a cloudy 62 degrees. Could be a rainy 62 tomorrow. Forecasting some storms. We'll tell you all about it. Traffic report, full forecast coming up 5 minutes. Starting in the nation's capital, the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals has largely upheld the partial gag order imposed on former President Donald Trump in the federal January 6th case. Stephen Portnoy.
The appeals court says it sees the, quote, real-time, real-world consequences that have come from Donald Trump's statements, including a death threat made against the judge overseeing this case. But the appeals panel says her gag order, prohibiting Trump from targeting witnesses and court personnel, is too broad. Trump will be able to criticize the special counsel and even potential witnesses, but the ruling says he cannot speak about their roles or testimony in the case. He also can't make statements that might spark interference with Jack Smith's team or with the judge's staff.
Some crime in Tennessee. A man was arrested after allegedly driving under the influence and hitting an officer. The officer said that a work truck was driven by a 28-year-old Diego Antonio Vero Roblero. It hit his vehicle before fleeing the scene, and after a short chase, officers pulled him over. They found that he had slurred speech and smelled of booze. The injured officer was transported to St. Thomas Midtown Hospital for treatment. And the same week, a Texas woman was granted an abortion by a judge. A similar lawsuit has been announced in Kentucky. Dave Packer.
A Kentucky woman, 8 weeks pregnant and identified in the complaint only as Jane Doe, suing the state because, as Kentucky ACLU attorney Amber Duke says, she's decided that the best course of action for herself and her family is to terminate the pregnancy.
Jane Doe and all Kentuckians should have the power to make decisions about their bodies and to have access to essential health care in their communities.
Kentucky now has some of the most restrictive abortion laws in the country.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Today's show happened because I saw a comment. He said, why don't you do something on doves and dove fields and how to find them and things like that. So
yeah. All right.
Good idea. It's past the opening day, but like you said, it can work.
Yeah.
Because the season is long. It runs for 90 days and there's 3 segments, so we're going to cover all that today. Let's rattle off the season. September 1 through September 28th is the first segment of Dove, and then October 14th through November 5th, and then December 8th through January 15th. 15 is your bag limit. So September 1 is opening day, and that's at noon in Tennessee.
September 1st has been one of those days. I mean, you'll see guys. I mean, they'll take off work, have big cooking and getting together with friends, and it's kind of neat to see.
Yeah.
Historically, it's a huge social event. I'd say the majority of the hunters probably hunt opening day, opening weekend, and then won't pick up a shotgun until next year. So,
we have 2 other segments besides this one. Running in October, and then even all the way through was that January 15th. There's a lot of opportunity throughout the year.
On our website, tnwildlife.org, on our homepage, you can click the button there to dove hunting info and fields is what the button's titled. It's got all the information on dove hunting. You can find the fields there. So let's talk about how to find a field. You click on Region 2, it pulls up the options that are available, and get down to Bark Camp Barrens, and you see it's open statewide. So the hunting's not over there. There's still opportunity. Even though we had a big opening day, let it die down a little bit and get back in there. You're going to have some good hunting, I think, there, sounds like, anyway.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 3:37. I'm Pamela Furr in for Brian Wilson. Glad to have you today. Brian is off this afternoon. He'll be back on Monday. Coming up at 4:05, we'll be talking to the Deputy Director of Americans for Prosperity about the governor's new Education Freedom Scholarship proposal. That is on the way. Then we will talk at 5:30 this afternoon to two members of the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition. There's this, I don't know if you've heard about this, but there's this disturbing story out there that Middle Tennessee generates most of the human trafficking calls, and a lot of those calls are child human trafficking calls. I don't really want to be on a list where Middle Tennessee is high in those numbers. That, again, each his own when it comes to paying for sex, right? I do believe that. But there are a lot of adults who are in that trade that don't want to be in that trade. If you are a consenting adult and you choose so, that's my opinion. If you choose to do this, that's your life. You do what you want to do. You have to answer to God and whatever. But when people are involved and it's not their choice, that's a problem. And then when we're talking about children, that's more than a problem. That's egregious. That is, let me find all the words to apply here. So we're going to talk about that at 5:35 this afternoon. Isn't that pleasant conversation to go into the weekend? But I think it's important. There was a movie out. I'll say this, and then we'll get to your phone calls. Dan, I see you on the line. We'll take your call first, 615-737-9986. There was a movie that a lot of us watched. We were ready to watch it. We wanted to see what this had to say. It was important. It was important for society to see this movie, The Sound of Freedom. Remember, Sound of Freedom, about child human trafficking and how one guy got involved and gave up everything that he had, if you will, or his life, if you will, his norm, to save this one girl who had been kidnapped. And anyway, that's great. And we all agreed this is horrendous, and it goes on every day in our country. But now that movie is off our radar, not a lot of people are talking about child human trafficking anymore. And I find that sad. I'm guilty of it. It's not on my radar like it should be. So we're going to try to bring your attention to it again. I know it's heavy going into the weekend, but it's important. 615-737-9986. Let's go to Dan in Clarksville, who's on the line. Hey, Dan, thanks for calling your Farb Fur.
Hey, Pam, it's always good to hear you on every time slot you're on the radio.
Thank you.
I heard earlier today that Hunter Biden's defense attorney to these charges for the tax violation said that if his name hadn't been Hunter Biden, if his last name wasn't Biden, the charges would have never been brought.
Yep.
And I agree completely, because if his last name wasn't Biden, he wouldn't have had access to any of that money.
Exactly. Agree 100%.
And my second thought is that the charges were brought in California. Do you think he'll get a fair and unbiased jury trial in there? It's about the same as President Trump trying to get a fair and unbiased jury trial in District of Columbia or New York.
Will he get a fair trial? At this point,
I'm talking about unbiased in California. When you have a jury that's already predisposed to vote on the heavy liberal side, it's already over with before they even start.
So you're saying before they even start, that a jury in California will find him not guilty?
Yes.
I don't know how. I honestly don't know how. That's number one. And I don't know that the prosecution would allow for a completely biased jury. I mean, both sides get to choose who the jurors are.
Oh, yeah. But when you have a pool of jurors that there's not much to pick from, except for it's supposed to be a jury of your peers. Well,
sure.
For Hunter, it would be his peers, people that think the same way and have the same world viewpoint. Whereas
do you
Washington,
honestly think this
D.C.,
is going to trial?
I don't know.
I
There's
don't think
no
it's going
plea
to
deal for this.
Yeah,
But if it does go to trial, I have a feeling that there will be all sorts of names and dates and peoples mentioned by Hunter that will make his dad be in even greater trouble.
Well, see, that's the deal. Thank you very much, Dan. That is something certainly to consider. He's going to have names. He's going to have information. And if his father does not pardon him, he could certainly lay it all out on the table that could cause problems for his father. Think about that. 615-737-9986 is the phone number. Let's go to Cedric in Kentucky. Hey, Cedric, how are you?
How we doing this evening, Pam?
Doing great, sir. Thank you for calling.
I've been listening to y'all for about 5 months now, and all of y'all have got a lot of very important information and points. That's why I keep listening. I learned a long time ago. My parents taught me that God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, and He did that so that we could listen real good, because words mean something. As far as that, like the election is concerned, it is going to be a hard election, and I know that it's going to be a battle up and down. But something that kind of disturbed me earlier today was one of the guys, well, a couple of them were talking about that 1776 and basically trying to deal with like a civil war or whatever, the country coming against each other because one side wants to be one way and one side wants to be another.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to give them some real good information on that. If they've never held a sibling or never held their child or their brother or their mother and had to close their eyes and watch them take their last breath, they might want to reconsider those thoughts and just not pitch that out there like it's just something to throw out there in the wind.
All right. So first of all, I'm not. Well, hang on. Okay, I think he's listening to himself on the radio because it seemed like it was playing back there. Cedric, I appreciate your phone call. I can't comment because I don't know exactly what you're talking about. First of all, 1776 wasn't a civil war. 1776, that wasn't it the Revolutionary War that ended up happening, where Americans said enough. We don't want to live under a rule of a king. We want to be independent. That was what the Declaration of Independence was all about. So I don't know exactly what the comments were made earlier in the day. I don't get to listen 24/7. So that's all I would say to that. That's not a civil war. 1776 was not the Civil War. 615-737-9986. David on the line. Hey, David.
Hey, Pamela. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good. You sound good.
Thank you. Thank you.
The gentleman that was just talking about 1776. I called in earlier today. And I brought that up.
Oh, you're the one that brought it up. I see.
Yeah,
so tell me why.
I brought it up talking to Chris Ann, and it was about at first there's a comment about your First Amendment, but then I brought up the way the government is doing now, and basically what I said. Chris Ann was, I asked him if he believed in the Constitution. He said yes. I said 100%. He said absolutely. Greatest document ever written, which it was. And I said, well, if the Democrats take over and they continue to stay in office in this next election, then we the people have an obligation. It's in the Constitution. When the government stops working for you, for the people, the people have a constitutional duty to take them out of office. And we're not talking about election either.
All right. Well, here's the danger, David, for you saying that publicly on a radio station. That could be considered a veiled threat against a government official. So if I were you, I'd hang up right about now and rethink about saying things like that on a public forum. That's number one. Number two, I don't believe that our country is so far gone that it cannot be restored. That's how the founding fathers, who were around in 1776, set it up. And years later, as they continued to tweak and to add amendments to the Constitution, etc. Those men were, I believe, not only endowed by their creator, but inspired by their creator to do what they did to get us to this place. So do I believe that we are in serious trouble? I do in a lot of ways. But we're not that far gone. Look, I'm wearing, you can't see it on the radio, but you could on the TV, the Super Talk TV. Reignite the American dream. I believe that you and I, as freedom-loving people, can hold our government accountable and take care of things at the ballot box, where not one drop of blood has to be shed in 2023 or 2024 or 2025. So, is David calling back? I'm not going back to David. So I'm sorry, David, I apologize. But when you start saying things like that, for me, that's dangerous ground. And you have a right to say it in this country. And you can say it in a public forum, but I'm not going to continue to listen to it on the radio. Go to social media, send me an email if you want to. But I'm just doing that for your sake, because that sounded like, to me, a veiled threat against a government official. And I can't entertain that here. My company won't let me entertain that here. I'm just telling you, there are other ways. There are other ways to get involved and hold your government officials accountable. And I encourage you to do that with groups like Americans for Prosperity. There are other groups out there, too, that are activist groups that maintain that the First Amendment is probably one of your most important amendments. Free speech. Freedom to practice whatever religion you want to practice in this country. Freedom of the press. There are two others that aren't. Freedom to protest. What's the other one? Why am I missing the other one? Oh, my gosh. At any rate, the most important amendment that we have. Our founding fathers knew what they were doing. They were inspired by God to do it, in my opinion. We're not that far. We're in bad shape. We're not that far gone that we're one election away from being completely destroyed. I don't believe that. I can't walk there with you. I'm sorry. I have hope. I'm a woman of hope. 351. I know we've got others holding, Rod and some others. We'll take your phone calls when we come back. 615-737-9986 is the phone number. I'm Pamela Furr, and for Brian Wilson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. We know that diversification is an important part of the investing process, but how do you reduce risk of a portfolio through diversification? Well, you use correlations. Now think of bathing suit sales and suntan oil sales. They tend to move together, right? Think of bathing suit sales versus winter coat sales. More dissimilar movement, and that's the idea. But why is diversification so important? Well, think about it this way. Everybody would like to have this happen with their investments. They just go straight up. But what we know is this is really what tends to happen. Markets may go way up and then down, or down then way up. Now let's say if we isolate parts of that curve right there, and the first curve right there, and the second curve right there. If you're putting money away for retirement, every time you put money in, if this is what's going on, you're buying more shares. Then just before you retire, the market goes up, you're really happy. If, on the other hand, you keep paying a higher and higher price and then the market goes down, you're really sad. And we can't choose what's going to happen with the market next. But what we can do is what we know through academic research, and there are Nobel Prizes awarded for this, is we can look for things that tend to move in dissimilar fashion. And what happens when we do that, we can reduce the volatility of the portfolio, hence bringing those curves in. Now, that's the idea. Now, if you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
It's 4 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 62 degrees in Nashville. Expecting some storms tomorrow evening. We'll tell you all about them in a full weather forecast. Traffic report coming up 5 minutes. As UN officials warn the Security Council that Gaza is reaching its breaking point, National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby tells reporters today they're hopeful that Israel will allow additional aid trucks to move into Gaza over the weekend that could alleviate immediate needs. Karen Travers has the latest.
The White House says it shares international concerns about the humanitarian situation in Gaza, but National Security spokesman John Kirby would not go as far as officials at the United Nations who have said that Gaza is on the brink of collapse.
We're certainly mindful of the suffering of the people of Gaza, and we're doing everything we can to not just get stuff in there, but to lead an actual international effort to get stuff in there.
Kirby said there are dozens and dozens of trucks in line waiting to get through inspection to get into Gaza with much needed humanitarian assistance.
And the United Nations held a vote today on whether they supported a ceasefire there in Gaza. The United States weighing in saying they do not. Right now in Tennessee, the victims from the plane crash yesterday in Giles County have now been identified as Jenny and James Blaylock from Knoxville. The crash happened near Marshall County around 11 a.m. yesterday. The Blaylocks were the only two people on board the plane at the time of the crash. And the annual federal spending numbers are out, and once again, the government spending more and taking. Andy Field.
The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office reporting that the federal government added another $47 billion to the national spending deficit. And even though Uncle Sam collected $108 billion more in taxes, the government wiped out that income by spending $155 billion more than the year before. There appears to be no agreement between the parties on how to reduce that spending.
Right now, in the Volunteer State News 2 says that a man in Lewisburg has been charged with sexual abuse crimes against children. 30-year-old Lance Brock was found guilty of sending child abuse material through online chat applications. Brock was booked into the Marshall County Jail on a $60,000 bond. And one day after a Texas judge decided to allow a pregnant woman to terminate her pregnancy for health reasons, a Kentucky woman is challenging her state's laws. The Jane Doe in this case filed a class action lawsuit saying it violated her privacy. This plaintiff is 8 weeks pregnant, but no other information was provided about her condition, only that preventing her access to an abortion violated her rights. Civil rights attorney Amber Duke read the statement on behalf of her unnamed client.
I am a proud Kentuckian, and I love the life my family and I have here. But I'm angry that now that I am pregnant and do not want to be, the government is interfering in my private matters and blocking me from having an abortion.
And a ruling in her favor would be for all Kentuckians looking to get an abortion. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Good afternoon. It is 4:07. I'm Pamela Furr in for Brian Wilson, your Farb. Am I saying it right, or is your Farb? Your Farb is not here today, your friend in radio, buddy. He is getting ready for a Christmas party, so that is what he is doing today. He took today off, so he'll be back on Monday. But I'm glad I get the opportunity to spend Friday afternoon with you, and I'm happy about that. 615-737-9986 is the phone number. We are going to want to talk to you, because if you have any questions about our next topic, we invite you to call, because maybe we can address some of those questions. Now, is my computer up there, producer Mason Jar? All right. One of the things that we're going to talk about this particular hour is education and the governor's new proposal for education freedom scholarships. And I have a theme song for this, but of course, my computer is not working properly. Now, should we go back to school for this? I feel like I need to get a better education about audio here. Is this going to play? Here we go. There we go. In studio with me today is the one and only Michael Lotfy. Thank you, sir, for being with me. He is the Deputy Director of Americans for Prosperity. And I have to say, for full disclosure, this is a company that I do work for. And I've been working for you guys, since July? I think that's right. I think since July. Mm-hmm. And this is an issue that Americans for Prosperity Tennessee is behind, I believe, 100%. And so we wanted to talk about it today because there are some school boards, there's some areas throughout Tennessee that are actually passing resolutions that say we do not support this, quote, voucher program from Governor Lee. And I find that interesting, Michael, because we haven't even seen the bill yet. And some of these places like, Greenville, Tennessee, their school board has passed a resolution. Go ahead and get in the mic right there. But they've passed a resolution that says we're not for this. Jackson, Tennessee mayor, I just read what he had to say. They say they're not for this. Cheatham County Board of Education says they're not for this. But how do they know if it hasn't been passed yet? Your comments so far.
It's been hi Pamela.
Hi.
Thanks for having me.
Sure.
It's really quite remarkable, I would say, just to see all of these school boards coming out saying, "Oh, we hate this. We don't like this. This is bad for schools. It's bad for teachers. It's bad for students. You're defunding public schools." Just all of these logical fallacies. I mean, whatever they can come up with, really, and they're just starting to throw it like a pot of spaghetti and see what sticks at the wall, because at the end of the day, every single one of these school boards, without fail, that I've seen, they pass their resolutions, they get on Twitter, whatever it may be, and you look up the stats at their schools, and every single one of them is failing students, parents, and teachers.
And the community.
Yeah. And so what's really sad, I think the saddest part of all of it is that you have so many incredible teachers at these schools who want so badly to do well, but they are completely bogged down with the administration at these schools. They're not most of them, a lot of them, are not happy at these schools. They'll tell you that privately. Some of them are, great, no problem, but a lot of them want more choice themselves.
Right.
And school choice isn't just choice for parents and students; it's also choice for teachers. And I think that's what actually the teachers union and these school boards really hate, that part of it.
Yeah. Well, let's start from the beginning. So the governor came out, it's been about a week or so ago, to announce education freedom scholarships. And that means a little over $7,000 for a child whose parent wishes to take them out of a failing school system or a school system that's not meeting the needs of that particular child, we've been talking about this before we came on the air here, but it could be a great school system. It could be a great school, but for whatever reason, that child isn't thriving there. So the parent wants to do something for that child. So this gives them an opportunity by taking their tax dollars that they pay with their property taxes. It takes their tax dollars and allows them to do such a thing. We're doing it now in Shelby County, Davidson County, and Hamilton County.
That's correct, yeah.
All right. So have I explained it properly?
Yeah, I think so. And I think so what she's referencing for everyone who's not aware is that we do have a pilot program currently for school choice in Tennessee. So we passed this in 2019 for Shelby and Davidson County, and that was only for failing schools. So you had to be a failing school for a parent to actually take advantage of that ESA for that specific pilot program. We then expanded it to include Hamilton County this last year. And that also has to just be for failing schools, for failing public schools, to take advantage of that. So if your student's not in one of those schools, you wouldn't be able to take advantage of it. The intent with this is that regardless of whether or not the school is failing, regardless of whether or not you even have your kids in public school right now, right, you will be able to take advantage of this ESA program, $7,000 per year per child. So if you're a family of 2, you got 2 kids, or family of 4, you got 2 kids, it's $14,000 a year per child of your education tax dollars. You pay these taxes already to educate your children. And you'll be able to recuperate that, reclaim your tax dollars, and spend that however you want to educate your children. So if you want your children to be in a homeschool co-op, if you want them to be at a Catholic school, if you want them to be at a synagogue school, if you want them to go to, homeschooling, private school, whatever it may be that you want, you can take advantage of this. And if you already got them in a homeschool co-op or a private school, then you'll also be able to finally quit paying for school twice,
right?
Because you're paying for the public schools.
Dipping.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, you're not double. You're the government's double dipping, right?
Yeah.
The government's taking your money, even though you're not educating your kids in those schools, and then they're making you turn around and pay twice.
For it,
for school.
So what is and just for full disclosure, we've also invited some of those who have been critical of this idea of this ESA program, or Educational Freedom Scholarships, EFS is what I'm calling it, have been critical of this, saying this is government giving you money, and so therefore there will be government strings attached to it, et cetera, et cetera. There are those who are trying to distract this, and I've invited them on the show. So far, no one has said yes yet. So we invite you who are listening, if you have questions, we've got some callers here, but 615-737-9986. What do you say those who are poo-pooing the idea before we haven't even seen what this is, and maybe what kind of qualifications may be out there? Not officially, not in a bill form.
Sure. So Governor Lee is incredibly cognizant, as well as his staff and his policy staff especially. They're very, very aware of the notion that they want to ensure independence for homeschoolers and for private schools. So, I have had discussions with them directly. And I think that says a lot more. I'm not trying to put myself up on a pedestal or anything. I mean, if some of these people actually wanted to be involved in the process, they could have done the same thing.
Sure.
But unfortunately, they haven't done the same thing. They're instead trying to go out and spread disinformation and chaos online just because it gets them clicks and whatever else.
Some are, but there are some legitimate questions and concerns.
Right. And I think a lot of those questions and concerns come from those people who are trying to use hyperbole and so on and so forth. But to answer that question plainly is that the governor's administration has given us their word, that when the language is released, that we'll be very happy with it, that we're going to like what it says, especially with regards to independence with homeschoolers and private schoolers. We've told them, flat out that if there are strings attached in this legislation, then we may have to look at it twice and consider whether or not we're even going to support it.
From an Americans for Prosperity Tennessee standpoint.
So they are very well aware that of what kind of legislation that we're looking for, what kind of legislation the Tennessee Independent School Association wants to see as far, so these are real concerns. I'm not going to say they're not real concerns, but there are people actively having conversations to ensure that
those concerns are addressed.
Those concerns addressed,
Yeah.
that there are not strings attached as far as, forcing your kids to take TCAPs or curriculum or anything like that.
But now, aren't there already state requirements, even if you are a homeschool or a private school or what have you? There are some state requirements that they can't come out of homeschool and not be able to read. They can't come out of private schools and not be able to read or pass an college entrance exam.
Right.
Am I right about that?
Yeah, at the end of the day, if you're homeschooling or you're going to private school, those kids have to take the same exact ACT and SAT, right? To get into college.
Sure.
Like they have to when they walk off to college, they've got to pass those same exact prerequisite classes to make sure that they actually, can get in.
Mm-hmm.
And the data has already spoken on this. Like homeschoolers and private schoolers do far better
so
on,
much
on
better.
those standardized ACT, SAT, college entrance exams. So they still have to meet those same standards if they're trying to further their education at some point in the future. And then there's also the matter of, like, at the end of the day, this is a free market system, right? And so if these colleges if these private schools or homeschool co-ops are not actually meeting the needs of these students, parents are going to know that really quickly.
Yeah, and we'll take them someplace else.
Yeah, and they're going to collapse. And that's the difference between the free market and these government schools is that you have all of these government schools, all of these school board administrators, so on and so forth, stepping up saying they hate this. Their schools are failing, and they get to they're allowed to continue to fail.
Right. For me, I will say this. We'll take a quick break, and then we do have full phone lines at this point. So if you have any questions that we can answer about the school choice programs, even if it's negative, we would love to hear from you and hear what your concerns are. Yeah, seriously, because that's what this is for. It's an open discussion. My concern would be this: if you're given $7,000 per child per family, tax dollars, I think it's $20,000 the first year, and then it's open after that to more than that, I think.
20,000 individuals?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So my question would be, is there any kind of, I would hope there'd be kind of oversight. This money can't be spent for anything else. Mm-hmm. And I would hope there'd be oversight to make sure this money is not spent for anything else but what your child needs for education, whether it's tuition, transportation to school, whatever the case may be. That would be my concern in this. And I'm hoping and I'm sure that the governor's office or whoever's going to carry these bills will have that in the bill.
Yeah, they've already actually got that completely worked out. And one of the great things about where Tennessee is at as far as the order of states that have implemented school choice programs is that there are other states that have already gone before us. And we like to be first a lot, and unfortunately
we
won't be first on this one, but that's okay, because what it's allowed us to do is like it's the perfect model of America being a laboratory of democracy, right? Mm-hmm. Where we've been able to see what other states have passed this and where they've gotten held up, where they've messed up, where they wish they could have gone back and done something differently. And that's another incredible thing that the governor's administration has done is the policy director, Michael Hendricks. He's actually traveled the country and he's gone to all these other states that have implemented school choice, and he says, where did you guys mess up? What, even if your program is perfect, surely there's something you would have changed.
Yeah.
And so they're making sure that anything and everything that they have learned from other states so far can be implemented in this program, and ensuring that waste is not a part of it is at the top of the list.
Gotcha. All right, it is 4:20. We've got Heather, Teresa, Jamie, and Caleb on the line who want to talk about this school choice program. So we're going to do that. We'll take your questions, and if any of you guys have any questions, I have completely forgotten. We do have a super text line, too, that if anybody wants to ask any questions, 615-737-9986. I'm Pamela Furr, and for Brian Wilson, Michael Lotfi, the Deputy Director of Americans for Prosperity, in studio with me today on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Today's show happened because I saw a comment. He said, why don't you do something on doves and dove fields and how to find them and things like that. So
yeah. All right.
Good idea. It's past the opening day, but like you said, it can work.
Yeah.
Because the season is long. It runs for 90 days, and there's 3 segments, so we're going to cover all that today. Let's rattle off the season. September 1 through September 28th is the first segment of Dove, and then October 14th through November 5th, and then December 8th through January 15th. 15 is your bag limit. So September 1 is opening day, and that's at noon in Tennessee.
September 1st has been one of those days. I mean, you'll see guys. I mean, they'll take off work. Have big cooking and getting together with friends, and it's kind of neat to see.
Yeah.
Historically, it's a huge social event. I'd say the majority of the hunters probably hunt opening day, opening weekend, and then won't pick up a shotgun until next year. So,
we have 2 other segments besides this one. Running in October, and then even all the way through was that January 15th. There's a lot of opportunity throughout the year.
On our website, tnwildlife.org, on our homepage, you can click the button there to dove hunting info and fields is what the button's titled. It's got all the information on dove hunting. You can find the fields there. So let's talk about how to find a field. You click on Region 2, it pulls up the options that are available, and get down to Bark Camp Barrens, and you see it's open statewide. So the hunting's not over there. There's still opportunity. Even though we had a big opening day, let it die down a little bit and get back in there. You're going to have some good hunting, I think, there, sounds like, anyway.
Congress discussing whether or not to approve more foreign aid, and the Money News report, what happened today on Wall Street. All that and more. 4:30 Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
Thank you very much, Mac. It is 4:25. I am Pamela Furr, in for Brian Wilson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. For the drive, in studio with me, the Deputy Director of Americans for Prosperity, Tennessee, Michael Lotfy. Glad to have you aboard. We are talking about school choice, universal school choice for the state of Tennessee. One of the things that Governor Lee has proposed for the upcoming 2024 legislative session. And a lot of people have opinions about this. I didn't didn't realize this was going to be such a hot topic, and it really, really is. So let's go. Can we take some questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
And by the way, this is an issue that Americans for Prosperity Tennessee is very much behind, because we believe in school choice. We believe in the freedom for parents to choose how best to educate their children. So let's go to Teresa, who's been holding on the longest. Teresa is in Fayetteville, Tennessee. Teresa, what's your question this afternoon?
I really don't have a question. I am a retired teacher. I raised 7 children, and I had one. I taught in public school. I had one that public school just was not for him. So we took him out. We put him in private school, and he flourished. He is now at Western Kentucky. He's got a 3.8 grade point average going into his junior year.
Nice.
He did very, very well. Now, that being said, when Common Core hit and a lot of this garbage that we're teaching in history, as a teacher, if I could have gone to a private school to pay, my taxpayers were paying for my other children in public, but we had to pay for him. I had to have that salary. If I could have gone and afforded it as a teacher, that's what I would have done. Now, that being said, I'm also, my forte was special ed and behaviors. That being said, we have to develop a curriculum following state standards that goes to those children. And I believe that in a private school, or the vouchers, whatever y'all want to call them, in these schools, you're going to meet the needs of those children a whole lot better because you have more freedom.
Yeah, she's absolutely right.
Okay, and that being said, no, I'm just saying, you know, there's more tentacles to this.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
I was up on the Hill in September of 2022 when Common Core hit, and I vehemently disagreed with Common Core. You know, so that being said, if you want to get my name, my number, I'm assuming, Pamela, that y'all have that when it comes through.
I do. Hold on one second. I'm going to put you on hold, Teresa, and we would love to have you join with us. Producer Mason, will you get her information for me? Get her last name as well and her phone number. Just talk to her and give that to me when we're done. Teresa, we would love to talk to you. Thank you so much for calling.
And Teresa, two points that I think Teresa brought up that are really important to realize is, number one, she said she was a retired teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Teachers love school choice, especially retired ones, because they know what a disaster the school systems are. And what the amazing thing about school choice is, it's not just choice for parents and students, it's also choice for teachers. Like she was saying, she would have loved to have gone to a different school. School choice is going to increase competition for teachers like you wouldn't believe. It's going to make teachers a real resource where people actually, where these schools are actually competing for their labor.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to open up a huge labor market to them. Teachers, especially retired teachers, a lot of teachers have quit because they hate being in the school system. They can't find a job at a public school, so they retire. One thing that's incredible about this school choice program is it will even enable teachers to be entrepreneurs. So someone like Teresa, who's a retired school teacher, can actually find 10 students or so, bring them together, and they can use their ESA funds to have what's called a micro school, and actually have Teresa come out of retirement, earn $70,000 a year to teach these kids in a small setting the way that she knows they'll do best. And that's what's really incredible about school choice. It opens up a whole new market for teachers, and you really have to ask yourself, why is the Tennessee Teachers Association, the union, fighting so hard to prevent these teachers from having more choice?
Interesting. It is 4:30. We'll talk more about this when we come back. Stick around. I'm Pamela Furr, in for Brian Wilson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.30, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 61 degrees, tracking some potential for storms tomorrow evening. Got a full weather forecast and a traffic report. We'll tell you all about it just ahead, 5 minutes. Time is running out for Congress to pass more aid to Ukraine and Israel before lawmakers take their holiday break. Andy Field tells us the White House says it's doing all it can to pass those bills.
The White House says spending to help Ukraine defeat Russia now is better than the alternative.
If you think the cost of supporting Ukraine is high now, think about how high it's going to be in national treasure and in American blood if we have to start acting on our Article 5 commitments.
White House National Security spokesman John Kirby referring to the section of the NATO agreement that says all members must defend the others if one of them is attacked, most likely by Russia.
And today, UN leaders met to vote on whether they agree with the ceasefire in Gaza. The United States voted that they do not. Now over to the money news. Daria Albinger with what happened on Wall Street today.
Stocks closed the week with some gains on a better-than-expected job report. The Dow rose 130 points and NASDAQ added 64 for the session, and the S&P closed up 19 at a 52-week high, just over 4,600. Wall Street turned things around with its sixth weekly gain in a row after starting the week with a 3-day slide. The markets rose on word that the job market isn't slowing as much as expected. Employers added a healthy 199,000 jobs in November, another sign that the economy could achieve that elusive soft landing. Wages also rose and unemployment dropped to 3.7% nationally. On the other hand, a resilient job market could end up fueling inflation, and that could push the Federal Reserve to raise a key interest rate, or at least keep it where it is now at the highest level since 2001 for longer than expected.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Awaken 180 is my solution for weight loss.
Laughing, learning, friendships. Not the words normally associated with trying to lose weight. But with Awaken 180, you're not trying. Weekly weight loss while gaining the tools to keep it off. Free support for life, friends for life. Learn how over 17,000 clients succeeded with the solution for weight loss.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 4:37. I am Pamela Furr, in for Brian Wilson on The Drive. Glad to have you with us today. 615-737-9986 is the telephone number. We are talking once again about the governor's education, wait a minute, start this again. Education Freedom Scholarship. I know some people call it education savings account.
Mm-hmm.
There's all kinds of names for it. School choice. The truth is we haven't seen the actual bill yet. He just made his proposal. He can't, give you a bill. I mean, that's not how it works.
Who's that, the governor?
Yeah, it is.
So they do write legislation. So basically what happens is that they can, the governor's office will propose language.
Right.
And then that language will be then ran by the Senate Majority Leader and House Majority Leader, and then they're the ones who actually file the bill.
Go from there. Mm-hmm. And so right now, if you're just joining, Michael Lotfi, who is the Deputy Director of Americans for Prosperity Tennessee, one of the groups that is behind this 100%, who's had the conversations, who's done a lot of homework on this. Michael Lotfi is the Deputy Director. Glad to have you with us. If you don't know, for full disclosure, I also work for that company. They are 100% aligned with the beliefs that I have, or maybe I should say I'm aligned with the beliefs that they have. Regardless, it's a great relationship. And one of the things that I can say is that, we get to be a part of giving more freedom to families, to parents who want to do right by their child by sending them to a school where they can thrive. And that's what this is all about. It's called school choice and school freedom. And I'm in. You in?
I'm in, baby.
All right, let's take some questions here. Let's address one of the questions that I've seen posted quite often when this topic comes up, Michael, and that is that illegals in the state of Tennessee would be able to tap into this program. And a lot of people are like, oh, no, can't be illegals. We don't want that.
Right. Yeah.
And on the surface, that sounds right, but...
Sure, yeah. So here is the big conundrum that we face right now when it comes to tax dollars, especially state tax dollars, supporting illegal immigration. First of all, obviously, the Biden administration has just completely failed at the border. Mm-hmm. You and I were both at the border.
Yeah, we were there.
In Mexico this summer, and it's we could do a whole nother show just on that. So I won't get too deep into it. But at the end of the day, the issue is that the federal government has absolutely failed to do anything to control our southern border. And we have a situation here where essentially in fact, the Supreme Court ruled in the early 1980s, a landmark case called Plyler versus Doe. And that's Plyler, Plyler versus Doe, if anybody wants to look it up. And it basically states that states are required to fund public education for the children of illegal immigrants. And so any mode of education that's offered via state tax dollars to anyone that's eligible to, any citizen that's eligible to go into a public school has to also be offered to, the children of illegals. Now, here's the caveat that I think is really interesting that people really need to understand. There's been this effort to kill the legislation by using that language. And I've always come back and said, well, hold on. If you're going to get on a platform, if you're going to put yourself on a pedestal and say, I can't support this because it's going to give illegal immigrants money for school, then I sure hope you've been voting against every single state budget since the 1980s, because every single state budget since the 1980s has been giving tax dollars for education of children of illegal immigrants. Now, here's the other thing that's really important. In Tennessee, that number is somewhere between $8,000 to $12,000, depending on the student of that child of illegal immigrant. Mm-hmm. And the reason why is because not only do they get the base amount that every student gets, but they also get extra resources, which is really frustrating. They get extra resources.
Is that because of English as a second language kind of stuff?
Yes, exactly. Okay, they have all these multipliers that go on top of the base, which are for, economically disadvantaged, which if you're coming here from another country and you've came across the border, you probably don't have very much money.
Right.
So, or at least there's a good chance you don't. So they get a multiplier for being economically disadvantaged. They get a multiplier for not speaking English as their native language. So actually, the real conservative position on this is if you actually don't want your tax dollars going to the children of illegal immigrants, it's actually far better that they would take the ESA because if they take the ESA, they only get $7,000 versus $10,000 to $12,000.
So if they decided to tap into this program, it would actually be saving the state
It
money.
would be a massive net savings to Tennessee taxpayers, as a matter of fact.
How about those that also say this tax money would go to Muslim schools or that sort of thing?
Sure.
I know what I would say to that. I mean, this is a free country where you can practice
right. Well,
your
if,
religion.
and
right?
that's what I would say as well. I mean, that we have a little thing called the First Amendment here in this country, and it works all ways.
Right.
It works against speech that you and I hate. It works against religions that we may not agree with, but it's also what protects our religion and our speech, right? And so that's just the matter of fact. If you want to be able to use the CSA for a Christian school or a Catholic school,
or
Muslim school, the same
Synagogue,
thing goes.
you said that
right.
too. Yeah,
we have the First Amendment in this country,
All
and we
right.
should be proud of that.
Let's go to another caller who's been holding a while. Let's go to Caleb, 615-737-9986. Caleb is in Nashville. Thanks for calling the show, sir.
Hey, Pamela. Hey, Michael. Thanks for having this important conversation. I just want to make sure all the Tennesseans know this is one of the larger scams that will be ever put upon the residents of this state. This does not work in other states. In the state of Arizona, where they tried this, it's failing. It's not working. What happens is that the private schools that you're so wanting to prop up, they can choose who they want to come to their school and who can't. They can also choose to set the prices for their school. So what happens when everybody gets $7,000 in their pocket? Well, guess what? Price of tuition just went up $7,000. If you think this is actually going to help Tennesseans, you're flat out wrong. What this is going to end up doing is hurting most of the poor Tennesseans in the state. These private schools do not have to provide public transportation.
Well, hold on. So hold on one second. So let's address some of your concerns one at a time. First of all, you say a scam. The program is working in Metro Nashville. You're from Nashville, right, Caleb? We have the pilot program
it does
here.
Not work in Nashville.
Hold on. Let me. Can I ask my question first? So, from my understanding, it is working. I heard from some families the day of the governor's announcement of some families where they would not have been able to get their child out of a failing school into another school where their child is actually thriving now. What would you say to that family?
Well, Pamela, you want to talk about our failing schools? Tennessee funds its schools in the bottom 10
What would you
of
say
all
to
states
that
in the country.
family, though, who says
say
their
that
child is doing... This person whose child was in a Nashville school, a Metro Nashville school, is now thriving in a private school. What would you say to that family, that they've been scammed?
No, I'd say there's one-off scenarios where you might be able to make a case where this is good, but for the greater good, this is not what's best for those Tennesseans. This is going to close most rural schools, just like some of these policies.
Can you tell me how it would close a rural school?
Well, you tell me, in some of these parts of rural Tennessee, how many private school options actually exist?
So that's an interesting question you bring up, right? Because you're saying, like, you're talking out of both sides. Because one part of you're making the argument that school choice will destroy rural public schools because everyone's going to leave them, and then at the same time, you're also saying there are no private schools out there. So which one is it? This is a great example of what we hear a lot of folks saying that, it's,
If you're going to call the schools a disaster and then not fund them like you already currently do, then don't be surprised with the results.
Let me say this also, Caleb. Hold on, Caleb. Let me say this. And I don't know how 20,000 ESAs is going to close public schools when we have 1 million students in these schools. So how is it that 20,000 is going to collapse a public school? I don't understand that math, and I'm not being rude to you at all, Caleb. I just don't understand that.
And could you also, Caleb?
Hold on, let him answer. Go ahead, Caleb. I'm
Governor
sorry.
Lee has already said that he wants to expand this to all Tennesseans the following year. So,
But there's only so many per year. Am I correct on that? There's only so many per
For
year.
the first couple of years, then it opens wide up. But,
Gotcha.
but Caleb, you say it's going
Governor
to.
Lee has said this will be the entire state. So
Okay.
imagine when every Tennessean in the state can access $7,000. These public schools have limited numbers of seats. They can't accept everybody. So what happens when everybody wants to go to public school? Well, guess what? Cost of private school just went up.
Caleb, can I ask a question? You said this has failed in other states and it causes rural schools to close. Can you give me one example of one school anywhere in the country that's closed because that state implemented school choice?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not gonna,
thanks.
Yeah. Okay, if you want to make a straw man argument like that, go ahead.
Well, no,
we're just asking for
that's not
the
a straw man.
example.
It's not a straw man argument. It's a
Well,
question.
listen, I'm not a lobbyist for a private school
Well,
organization.
that's all right. I can tell you, there's not been a single public school closed because school choice is implemented anywhere in the country.
I hate that you're, Caleb, and I'll say this and then I'll let you go. Here's what I hate. I hate that you're looking at this as a huge picture instead of thinking about students who are not thriving in schools, and that this is an opportunity for a parent who can't afford to take them out of a situation where they're not doing well, where this is an opportunity that they could supplement and actually.
I hear you, Pamela. I hear you, Pamela.
And I'm being dead. Hold on, you
inter.
Okay, I'm gonna let you go. I don't like being interrupted, so I'm gonna let you go. Thank you, Caleb. All right, it is 4:49, and I mean that. Think about the student. When you're thinking about all these things, I want you to think about the student who is not doing well. There are thousands of students who are doing well in our public school systems. And I doubt very seriously if their parent is going to want to pull them out of that school system, right?
No, if they love their public school, you can keep your public school.
Yeah, thank you. All right, it's time for a break. It is 4:49. I'm Pamela Furr, in for Brian Wilson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. We know that diversification is an important part of the investing process, but how do you reduce risk of a portfolio through diversification? Well, you use correlations. Now think of bathing suit sales and suntan oil sales. They tend to move together, right? Think of bathing suit sales versus winter coat sales. More dissimilar movement, and that's the idea. But why is diversification so important? Well, think about it this way. Everybody would like to have this happen with their investments. They just go straight up. But what we know is this is really what tends to happen. Markets may go way up and then down, or down, then way up. Now let's say if we isolate parts of that curve right there, and the first curve right there, and the second curve right there. If you're putting money away for retirement, every time you put money in, if this is what's going on, you're buying more shares. Then just before you retire, the market goes up, you're really happy. If, on the other hand, you keep paying a higher and higher price and then the market goes down, you're really sad. And we can't choose what's going to happen with the market next. But what we can do is what we know through academic research, and there are Nobel Prizes awarded for this, is we can look for things that tend to move in dissimilar fashion. And what happens when we do that, we can reduce the volatility of the portfolio, hence bringing those curves in. Now that's the idea. Now if you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
Two abortion lawsuits in the nation in the same week, a water main break in Tennessee, school shooter safety training, and Dolly Parton has purchased some property away from Pigeon Forge. We'll tell you where. Those stories and more coming up 5 o'clock right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you very much, Mac Maury. It is 4:56. Pamela Furr and for Brian Wilson. We're wrapping up our conversation about school choice, universal school choice here in the state of Tennessee. We have the Deputy Director of Americans for Prosperity Tennessee with us. You have some closing words here. We've run out of time, and I know our phone lines are pretty hot here, and our super text line as well. What are your closing comments really at this point?
Yeah, maybe we'll be able to come back in another time because
Sure.
I'd love to answer all these questions. Unfortunately, we just ran out of time. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, Tennessee school choice, this whole debate just really boils down to two sides. One side believes that parents should be empowered to spend their education tax dollars to educate their kids the way they best see fit. The other side believes that government bureaucrats knows what's best for your kids. I'd encourage everybody out there listening, if you want to be a part of this, if you would like $7,000 per year per student to educate your children the way that you best see fit, go to tnschoolchoice.org. Again, that is tnschoolchoice.org. Let your lawmakers know that you deserve to be in control of your tax dollars when it comes to educating your kids.
All right. Thank you very much, Michael Lotfy with Americans for Prosperity Tennessee. We've got news coming up next with Mac Maury and more on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Five o'clock. Happy Friday. I'm Mac Maury with your top story. 60 degrees. Chances for showers later on this evening, as well as tomorrow night. Showers and possible storms. We'll tell you more about that in the weather forecast. We also got a traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. Starting in Texas, well, really around the nation. The same week, a Texas woman was granted an abortion by a judge. A similar lawsuit has been announced in Kentucky. Dave Packer.
A Kentucky woman, 8 weeks pregnant and identified in the complaint only as Jane Doe, suing the state because, as Kentucky ACLU attorney Amber Duke says, she's decided that the best course of action for herself and her family is to terminate the pregnancy.
Jane Doe and all Kentuckians should have the power to make decisions about their bodies and to have access to essential health care in their community.
Kentucky now has some of the most restrictive abortion laws in the country.
And right now, back in Tennessee, a water main break left a large part of South Nashville with nothing coming through the pipes today. Channel 4's Brendan Tierney takes a look at how it's affecting homes and businesses.
Metro Water says they've been able to reroute water around this break and get it flowing again to businesses that didn't have service for hours. They had to put up signs like this at the Hundred Oaks complex that was without water for hours today. Vanderbilt had to cancel appointments or move people to telehealth or other surgery locations. Down the road, El Mariachi was able to open in time for lunch after getting about 80% of their normal water pressure back.
And Metro Water says they were able to isolate the break, but do not know how long it'll take until the repair is completed. And in Rutherford County, school shooter safety training slated to start in January for all of the nearly 6,000 teachers in the Rutherford County School District. Fox 17 says the school board voted to approve a $147,000 contract for training offered by Defense Systems. The county's EMA director and a sheriff's department captain tried to convince board members they could do the training for less money, but the board voted to go with an outside private company anyways. Over in the nation's capital, the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals has largely upheld the partial gag order imposed on former President Donald Trump in the federal January 6th case. Stephen Portnoy brings us the latest.
The appeals court says it sees the, quote, real-time, real-world consequences that have come from Donald Trump's statements, including a death threat made against the judge overseeing this case. But the appeals panel says her gag order, prohibiting Trump from targeting witnesses and court personnel, is too broad. Trump will be able to criticize the special counsel and even potential witnesses, but the ruling says he cannot speak about their roles or testimony in the case. He also can't make statements that might spark interference with Jack Smith's team or with the judge's staff.
In some entertainment news, News 2 reports that the Dollywood Company has purchased a piece of real estate right here in downtown Nashville. Parton Bot 211 Commerce Street says that she strongly believes in the future of Music City. Terms of the sale are not going to be disclosed. Future plans for the property have not yet been released. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Good afternoon. It is 5:07. I'm Pamela Furr in for Brian Wilson today on this finally Friday. Brian off today. He will be back on Monday. I am happy to be with you. It's my last show before my knee surgery, so I'm just going to try to have as much fun as possible before I go under the knife, which I'm terrified to do. I'm just going to be honest with you. We've discovered that I have white coat syndrome, which is a new thing. I'd never heard that before, but it is absolutely a thing because my blood pressure was off the charts when I went to see that doctor. Anyway, Mason is in the house producing today. Hello, Mason.
Hey, Pamela. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Glad to have you. Chris Weber is off today. He'll be back on Monday?
No, I'm in on Monday. I'm here Monday and Tuesday next week. Yeah, he'll be back next Wednesday.
He'll be back on Wednesday of next week. And over there in the newsroom, the one, the only Mac Maury. Mac, I got to sing the song. Come on. It's a fan favorite. When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's Mac Maury. All right. People actually asked me to sing that.
Did they really? Well, it's an excuse for you to sing, so I can't blame you.
All right. I'm going to tell a little secret, and then we'll get to some serious things. I don't know if Brian Wilson likes to hear me sing or not, and I'm going to tell you why. So he's got a piano player that's going to be playing at his Christmas party tomorrow night, right?
Fancy.
Like the real deal. And I go, well, find out if he knows Tennessee Christmas, and I'll sing at the party. And I heard nothing else. There was no text going, yeah, okay.
Yeah, we'll do.
There was no Jerry Seinfeld, no, we have another job for you. There was nothing like that. He ghosted. So I don't know. I'm going to try to sing, but
we will force the mic into your hands.
I'm sort of joking. He didn't respond. And I think his response, when I said, I'm noticing you didn't respond, his response was, busy day, busy day. I'm going, okay, yeah, but you're still not responding to what I said. So,
I'm sure Cabana Wife needs help with one of their 3711 trees in there. So I'm sure they've got a lot of work they're doing.
Maybe so. But just get a little, I don't know, the Christmas cheer. I'm going to sing whether he likes it or
not. Yes.
I'm teasing. And I'm not a horrible singer. I guess.
Very good singer.
I mean, I don't know. Anyway, but I'm taking the hint for sure. There will be video one way or another of them trying to keep me from the piano. Or me right there at the piano, one way or the other. All right, coming up on the program at 5:35, we're going to speak to a couple of gentlemen who have been involved in the fight here in Tennessee to keep child human trafficking at bay. And I'm telling you, what is so discouraging is to see that Middle Tennessee generates the most human trafficking calls. That's a report that was released yesterday. And, I mean, it's something certainly not to be proud of here in Middle Tennessee. So we're going to talk about that. It's a serious subject. It's a heavy subject, but it's one that needs to continue to be had. And I don't know that people talk about it like they should. They sure did when the movie came out, Sound of Freedom. But now that the movie is kind of off the radar, people have seen it now and they've been moved. Now you're back to your everyday lives. And that is natural, but I think it's important to continue to have this conversation. So we're going to do that after 5:30. Stick around for that. I know some people still want to talk about school vouchers. There's one guy who wants to talk about Civil War. And so we're going to do that. You know why? Because today is Freak Out Friday. See, he's not even paying attention. You're going to have to be replaced, Mason. We're going to have to find somebody who's paying attention.
It's been a long day. Don't give me that.
All right, at any rate, it's
what day is it?
Freak Out Friday. Thank you very much. I know normally it's phone your farb, but I don't know that I could say I'm your farb. I'm your fur farb. I'm Dollar Store Reba. I'm the redheaded stranger. I've got all these nicknames, but no one's ever actually called me your Farb. So we'll reserve that for Brian Wilson.
Yeah, he's basically coined the phrase for himself. I think he deserves it.
Your Farb. All right, 615-737-9986 is the phone number. You can also super text us. I've been reading some of those super texts during the break. Rebecca is on the line from Warren County. Hello, Rebecca. Thank you for calling the Brian Wilson Show. The Drive with Brian Wilson.
Hi, thank you for having me. I love the show. I listen to it every day after work.
Awesome.
I just wanted to quickly say about the school situation. I am a current educator. I do have some concerns with it. I think not everything is black and white. It might look good on paper, but sometimes when it's in the school system, it doesn't work out exactly that way. And I definitely want to show appreciation for a lot of our teachers because the state will push a lot of this stuff down through the pipeline for us to do. And it's like now they're saying, well, this is crap. Let's start these vouchers and help these kids get out of there.
Well, first of all, let me just say this. I don't think it's a true voucher program. It is an education savings account or education freedom scholarship, if you will. I don't think it's a true voucher program. It's going to go with the student, not with the not with the school. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I just wanted to just say that, and then I do wonder what it's going to look like when you have students go from a public school to a private school and because private schools have more of an option to say to kick students out if things happen. And we have a lot of parents who get upset. They get upset if their child's getting in trouble and we're having to call them and we'll say, okay, well, we're just going to leave.
Well, I don't know any of that.
I just wonder.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Ask your question. I interrupted. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. I just was saying, I wonder what that's going to look like. Well, how is that all going to fit together?
Why would a private school change their rules simply because a parent is now taking their school out of public school and putting them in that private school? And here's the other thing, too. If the private school doesn't have enough seats for a student, they can say, I'm sorry, not today, not this year.
Very true.
So
that is very true.
So I would. That's how I would answer that. That to me stands to reason. When you're talking about private schools, you still have to abide by their rules because, again, it's not that the state is sending the school the money. It's that the state would be sending the taxpayer parent $7,000 of their money to use how they see fit. If the child is acting up in school, the child would be expelled from the school. That doesn't change the $7,000.
Their rules.
Yeah.
Right. I just wonder what would happen, though. If they go to the private school and then doesn't work out, do they come back to public school? Do they go to another private school?
That's
I guess
a good
that
question.
would be their option.
That would be their decision.
I just have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
I think it's great for some situations, like what you discussed earlier with a student who goes from public to private and they flourish. I think that's great. I just still have some questions, and I'm interested to see how it's going to work out.
Sure. Well, tnschool.org, that is where you can go to talk to your or to tell your legislator where you stand, where you stand on that issue. And then, of course, they're going to bring it up in 2024, where you can ask your legislator those questions. All right. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you for what you do as an educator.
Thank you.
Have a good night. All right, 615-737-9986. We've got Rod, who's been holding on the line in Lebanon. Rod, you want to talk about Civil War?
Well, you had a caller on a little bit earlier, about an hour ago, and he had mentioned something about revolution and Civil War. And I just wanted to make the point that a Civil War is a war between citizens of the same country. So in that aspect, or that respect, the American Revolution was a civil war. About a year into it, they started calling it a revolution because they were literally changing the form of government from a kind of a monarchy with a parliament to our current system that we have today. So a democratic republic. But I just wanted to, let you know that, a civil war, the American Revolution was a civil war. It was a battle between people of Britain, in essence. We were all British citizens. And 80-something years later...
But I'm not sure that's what he meant, and I think you know that.
Well, I just wanted to make that point because when we had the Civil War 80-something years later, they thought they were continuing the American Revolution.
Look, let me tell you, I understand that, and I also believe when you read the history of the Civil War and you read the offer that Abraham Lincoln actually made to Robert E. Lee to lead the Union troops, Robert E. Lee said, "No, I have to fight for my country, Virginia." So, anyway, way off the beaten path from a caller earlier in the program who felt like we are at the point of 1776 and made some, I don't know, I would say veiled threats against government officials. And I can't abide by that, my friend. 615-737-9986. Let's go to Heather, who's on the line. Hey, Heather, welcome to WTN and The Drive with Brian Wilson.
Thank you. I was listening during the school choice segment, and, I am all for school choice and competition in the schools. I think it'll make it'll make them better. But what I don't understand is if, I know it's only 20,000 the first year, but then eventually when it's open to all Tennesseans, doesn't that open up every person that is currently in a private school now being paid for, by their parents, that those parents get that $7,000? If we've got 100,000 students, so it's probably more than that in Tennessee, that's, that $700 million that's not, where are we going to get that money? And then I also think, wonder if instead of taking it all, because the public schools still have to have their operation money and their, and they're still going to have to pay the teachers and all that kind of stuff. Wonder if there could be some kind of a partnership between private and public to make the public schools better. I mean, private schools operate and make a profit, and they pay better, and they educate better. So somehow, if you could blend the private and the public to work together to make the public schools better, maybe that might be, another way to handle it.
Another option. To the first part of your question, let me say this. Not every parent's going to want to take their child from a public school into a private school. That's number one. So number two.
Right, but the ones that are already in private schools paying for it anyway, and then they just get the money, that takes the money. Where are we going to get all that extra money?
So you tell me how many kids are enrolled in private schools at this point. That's number one. Number two, when you're talking about, again, public education, you got 1 million kids in public schools these days. Not all private schools are going to be able to handle taking all those people from public schools into private schools. You only have so many seats. So these are all good questions. They're not coming from the TISA funds. It's coming from the general fund. And where are these tax dollars coming from? They're coming from you, and they're coming from me in our property taxes. So they'll just take it from the public school and put it to the private school, right? It won't go to the public school anymore. It'll go to the parent, who will then put it where they want it to be, whether that's homeschool or private school, is the way that I understand it. So that's
right. But they still have to support the public schools, the buildings and the utilities and the salaries and
that's
they have to cut a lot of bureaucracy.
Isn't that what comes from that's the TISA funds? I wish I had Michael still here with me who could answer that a little bit better, but I think that's, well, at any rate, 5:21. I'm Pamela Furr, in for Brian Wilson. Let me see if I can get some of the answers to your questions. And you can always send me an email, Pamela@997WTN.com, and I can look up the information and answer your question that way as well. All right? 615-737-9986. Did I give that already? What are we doing? I'm a little lost right. We're taking a break, right? Is that what we're doing? Thank you. And then we've got news coming up at 5:30, and then two gentlemen from the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition who will be in the studio with me as well, Aaron Gulbranson and Aaron Spradlin, to talk about human trafficking, more specifically child human trafficking in the state of Tennessee. It's all ahead on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Today's show happened because I saw a comment. He said, why don't you do something on doves and dove fields and how to find them and things like that. So
all right.
Good idea. It's past the opening day, but like you said, it can work.
Yeah.
Because the season is long. It runs for 90 days, and there's 3 segments, so we're going to cover all that today. Let's rattle off the season. September 1 through September 28th is the first segment of Dove, and then October 14th through November 5th, and then December 8th through January 15th. 15 is your bag limit. So September 1 is opening day, and that's at noon in Tennessee.
September 1st has been one of those days. I mean, you'll see guys. I mean, they'll take off work. Have big cooking and getting together with friends, and it's kind of neat to see.
Yeah.
Historically, it's a huge social event. I'd say the majority of the hunters probably hunt opening day, opening weekend, and then won't pick up a shotgun until next year. So,
we have 2 other segments besides this one. Running in October, and then even all the way through January 15th. There's a lot of opportunity throughout the year.
On our website, tnwildlife.org, on our homepage, you can click the button there to dove hunting info and fields is what the button's titled. It's got all the information on dove hunting. You can find the fields there. So let's talk about how to find a field. You click on Region 2, it pulls up the options that are available, and get down to Bark Camp Barrens, and you see it's open statewide. So the hunting's not over there. There's still opportunity. Even though we had a big opening day, let it die down a little bit and get back in there. You're going to have some good hunting, I think, there, sounds like, anyway.
The UN discussing aid to Gaza as the ceasefire has ended. Crime in Tennessee and abortion lawsuits all over the nation. 530 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you very much, Mac Maury. It is 5:27. I am Pamela Furr. It is The Drive with Brian Wilson. Brian will be back on Monday. Here it's a little crazy out there on the highway, so please be very careful. We'll take your phone calls here before we head to Mac Maury in the newsroom. Let's go to Lucas in Columbia. Hi, Lucas.
Hey, thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I was calling about the voucher thing earlier. I do want to mention that while we talk about these vouchers and how good they can be, we need to keep in mind also they're proposing about taking away federal funds for our public schools. So ultimately, when we think about that, we're taking that major fund away from our public schools. What are we going to do when it comes to the voucher program, and who's going to ultimately end up paying for that? And what it boils down to is taxpayers are going to have to pick that up, because if they do away with that federal funding, we're not going to be able to use those funds anymore. So we're going to have to raise the taxes on all of us across the state. So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I know that's what everybody. That is what the detractors like to say, that we're going to have to raise taxes to be able to fill in the gap. I don't know that is necessarily the case, Lucas. So that is definitely a conversation to have to find out where they're looking to replace those federal dollars, or even if they need to be replaced. I mean, I firmly believe, Lucas, that a lot of administrative costs in school systems across this state could be pulled back quite a bit. There are administrators in some school systems that have been doubled up. You know what I mean? Like 2, 3, 4 people doing the same dang job when one person could do it. There are a lot of ways that you can figure out from an administration standpoint how to save money, I think. So those are the conversations that need to be had.
Yeah, ultimately, when it boils down to it, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we get about $6 to $9 billion in federal funds to the state for public education. And so if our legislators are looking at doing away with that, that's a huge dip in the pocket of Tennesseans ultimately over time. So I think it's something that needs to be at the forefront of all of this conversation with the legislators that we speak to, for sure.
All right. Thank you very much for your phone call. I appreciate it. It is 5:30. I'm Pamela Furr on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.530, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 59 degrees in Nashville. Full weather forecast. Latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. UN officials warn the Security Council that Gaza is reaching its breaking point. National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby tells reporters today they're hopeful that Israel will allow additional aid trucks to move into Gaza over the weekend that could alleviate immediate needs. Karen Travers.
The White House says it shares international concerns about the humanitarian situation in Gaza, but National Security spokesman John Kirby would not go as far as officials at the United Nations who have said that Gaza is on the brink of collapse.
We're certainly mindful of the suffering of the people of Gaza, and we're doing everything we can to not just get stuff in there, but to lead an actual international effort to get stuff in there.
Kirby said there are dozens and dozens of trucks in line waiting to get through inspection to get into Gaza with much needed humanitarian assistance.
The United Nations held a vote today on whether they support a ceasefire in Gaza. United States weighed in with a vote saying they do not. Crime in the Volunteer State. Channel 4 reports that officers are looking for a man who shot another man this morning in Madison. It was in the Heatherwood Apartments at around 1:30. Police say that a man in a mask shot another who was in a balcony from the parking lot. It happened after an argument. The man on the balcony was transported to a hospital with a non-life-threatening injury. Officials chased him with dogs and a helicopter. That shooter still at large. And one day after a Texas judge decided to allow a pregnant woman to terminate her pregnancy for health reasons, a Kentucky woman now challenging her state's laws. The Jane Doe in this case filed a class action lawsuit saying it violated her privacy. This plaintiff is 8 weeks pregnant, but no other information was provided about her condition, only that preventing her access to an abortion violated her rights. Civil rights attorney Amber Duke read the statement on behalf of her unnamed client.
I am a proud Kentuckian, and I love the life my family and I have here. But I'm angry that now that I am pregnant and do not want to be, the government is interfering in my private matters and blocking me from having an abortion.
And a ruling in her favor would be for all Kentuckians looking to get an abortion. That is the latest news. Weather and traffic next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 5:37. I am Pamela Furr in for Brian on the drive on WTN. Brian is off today. He's getting ready for the big Christmas shindig that he throws every year at his house. And anyway, he'll be back on Monday. I'm sure there will be a lot of photos that you'll get to see from the big Christmas party. He has this huge, gigantic, inflatable Christmas tree in his yard that's like 20 feet tall. It's just huge.
It's an impressive thing,
yeah,
for sure.
But if a high wind comes in, you forget about it. I mean, that thing is done for. It's more like the thing that waves,
At
Sunday
at
kind
used
of
car
thing.
dealerships
Yeah,
and
that's
stuff.
more like that when there's a high wind, which we could. Been listening to the weather, we could get that. All right, let's get into a more serious subject. Now, we are waiting on one individual to arrive, and keep your eyes open there, Producer Mason.
I'm ready.
For that. We'll send you down to let him in. But we are talking today, who we have in the studio. We have two gentlemen from the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition. To my, just directly right across from me is Aaron Gulbranson. Aaron, thank you so much for being here. We're waiting for Aaron Spradlin to get here, who's in traffic. And there is a report, Aaron, that has come out.
Mm-hmm.
Are we calling you Aaron number 2?
I'm here first. I'm Aaron number 1. I'm always Aaron number 1.
So, but there is, in all seriousness, there is a new report that's come out that is quite alarming for me. And in fact, let me go through some statistics here, and then you can comment on that if you want to. I think most Middle Tennesseans have been like me. Maybe my head's been in the sand. Maybe I just don't want to look at reality. But I never, until I met you guys, honestly, I didn't know in Tennessee child human trafficking was such a problem. I really didn't. When I think of child human trafficking, I think of the border. I think of children from other countries being trafficked to other countries, et cetera. I don't think that it's happening here in Middle Tennessee, but it is. And people need to wake up to the fact that it is.
That 100% is. And the mistake that most politicians make, and it's an easy one to make, so I don't think anybody should feel bad. The mistake that most people make when they talk about this issue is they do think about the border. And the border is only roughly 13% of the issue. Most of the issue, we've got over... recent data around the country shows you've got over 1 million people living in the slavery of child and human trafficking in the United States. And, the vast majority of it is people who are Americans.
Yeah. Here's some statistics. It's the TBI that has released a new human trafficking statistical report last week, revealing a sharp increase in human trafficking of minors in Tennessee over a 5-year period. The report... It's a first of its kind, released in more than a decade, revealed there were 518 minor sex trafficking reports by November the 5th. And the agency notes that reports of minor sex trafficking dramatically increased. Check this out. This is the number that just hit me right upside the head with shock. From 66 in 2016... to 600 by 2021. That's an increase of 809%.
Yep.
I'm kind of speechless on this.
Well, let me emphasize and take away your breath a little bit more. That's what we know. That's what we can figure out.
No kidding.
The biggest thing is this is the murkiest issue to actually get hard data on, right? And one of the reasons we wanted this report was to create, a baseline. And I do, as much as I hate to do this, I need to toot our own horn as an organization. But this report doesn't happen. This law that requires this report does not happen without the work that the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition has done.
You can toot your own horn. It's a good thing.
And listen, our platform can be pretty much summed up as what is good for children, right? Anything that's good for children. That's why we're anti-child trafficking. That's why we're pro-school choice. Other issues, I can go through that. But this, to stay on topic, though, is we're never going to rest on, at least, from the policy angle, until no child is, or woman, or even men are victimized by this. And so the last report had not been done in over a decade. And that's very important to note. And so we saw the opportunity during special session. Of course, we advocated against any red flag laws.
Sure.
The General Assembly kept their word.
Sure.
We've talked about it ad nauseum to make progress right then and there. And it got passed. And I think there was only one no vote in the state house, and it passed with a couple of abstentions in the Senate unanimously. And I do need to also give a tip of the cap to, Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson, House Majority Leader William Lamberth, Senate Caucus Chair Ken Yeager, and Assistant Majority Leader Mark Cochran in the House. But this is ridiculously important. Now, what this does is it gives us a window, right? So you've got the data there shows child trafficking increasing that we are aware of exponentially. Now, I typically use a factor of 10 is our best guess because it's so murky. The other thing that's that we knew from the beginning is TBI is going to need more resources to gather data. That means money, that means bodies, which means money, right? And it means more enforcement. I mean, you look at the number of agents. Clearly, we need more agents. That's something, and I haven't had any pushback from anybody from a policy angle on this, right?
Sure.
So that's what we're looking at. We view this report and are very proud of getting it done for the first one in over 10 years, so we can use it as the tip of the spear and kick off a very, very. I mean, I just say we're trying to knife the gut of the child and human trafficking industry in the state of Tennessee with the legislation we're going to be unveiling very, very soon for next session. Some of it's already public, by the way.
Well, I am, as I go over these numbers again, I'm kind of stunned, and I think a lot of people in Tennessee are, if they're seeing this information. I haven't seen this distributed except for one other news source. Now, maybe it is out there. You can correct me. When I say news, Tennessee Star, definitely, but Fox 17 was the other.
Yep.
I don't know that I've seen this elsewhere. And I think more people need to know what kind of problem this is. First of all, I got to ask this. Who are these sick SOBs who are participating in this? Look, I am a libertarian, I think, more and more as I get older. You, as an adult, you choose what you want to do with your own body, with another consenting adult, etc.
Right.
It's none of my business. It's not the government's business, and leave it at that. But you're talking about children who probably did not choose to be in these situations.
Well, yeah.
I would say 99.99999% of the time, they did not choose to be in these situations. Who are these people that are participating in this?
Well, and children can't choose at all, right? Until you're of legal
Not
age.
legally, yeah.
And then of course the ones that are of, the adults that get trafficked, there's various forms of coercion, if not outright, chained to a wall that happens. But the people that are doing it, it depends on which part of the state. Like East Tennessee, sadly, you've got family members selling their kids for meth or their cousin or whatever, right? Grooming and that. Middle Tennessee, a lot of it is gangs, like the Gangster Disciples, originally based out of Chicago. In Chattanooga, there was cartel involvement, which, they traffic Americans and they traffic people from over the border too. So and then you've kind of got a mix in West Tennessee. So it's an organized crime, right? It's the fastest growing, what was it? 150 billion was the last that we saw in industry around the world that goes through it. And it's growing quickly. And I think it's going to overtake drugs around the world because as Spradlin likes to say, I mean, you have a product, sadly, that reproduces itself when a girl is trafficked from a young age and she has a kid, and then that kid's born into modern day slavery. So it's organized. And, the other thing I want to say is you have, and we're on the radio, so I got to parse this, but you have dirtbag DAs like Steve Mulroy in Memphis and Glenn Funk here in Nashville that enabled this. I mean, and we've talked about doing this with you. We can take anybody who wants to on a drive from Brentwood to Antioch, and you can see all sorts of human trafficking. And you know what doesn't happen is the cops don't stop anybody at the moment because they know that they're not going to get prosecuted. They know that there's not enough of them working on this stuff. I mean, you can go through a neighborhood and see 10 different transactions going on at the same dang time. And there's one precious cop car that maybe drives by when all the other ones are over at Nissan Stadium, doing traffic enforcement. There's not enough resources dedicated to this issue. And, it does happen in parts of the state too, where there's just simply not enough resources. So the good DAs that want to prosecute this stuff, their office doesn't have the money or the bodies to do it. So,
and in the meantime, you have innocence lost with these children.
Yeah.
Over and over and over again. All right, we're going to continue to talk about this. Aaron Gilbranson's in the studio right now. We're waiting for Aaron Spradlin to come in. Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition. I'm Pamela Furr, in for Brian Wilson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. We know that diversification is an important part of the investing process, but how do you reduce risk of a portfolio through diversification? Well, you use correlations. Now think of bathing suit sales and suntan oil sales. They tend to move together, right? Think of bathing suit sales versus winter coat sales. More dissimilar movement, and that's the idea. But why is diversification so important? Well, think about it this way. Everybody would like to have this happen with their investments. They just go straight up. But what we know is this is really what tends to happen. Markets may go way up and then down, or down, then way up. Now let's say if we isolate parts of that curve right there, and the first curve right there, and the second curve right there. If you're putting money away for retirement, every time you put money in, if this is what's going on, you're buying more shares. Then just before you retire, the market goes up, you're really happy. If on the other hand, you keep paying a higher and higher price, and then the market goes down, you're really sad. And we can't choose what's going to happen with the market next. But what we can do is what we know through academic research, and there are Nobel Prizes awarded for this, is we can look for things that tend to move in dissimilar fashion. And what happens when we do that, we can reduce the volatility of the portfolio, hence bringing those curves in. Now that's the idea. Now, if you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
An update on the Covenant Manifesto leak investigation, Governor Lee's school voucher proposal, and an update on the plane crash yesterday in Tennessee. I'll explain all at the top of the hour on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you very much, Mac Maury. It is 5:54. I am Pamela Furr in for Brian Wilson on the drive on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We are talking about a pretty heavy subject about child human trafficking. Now, I have to be honest with you. In the term human trafficking is not one that's been used for a long time, right? That's a newer. You used to sex slave trade, sex industry, prostitution. All of this, what's been used. So the human trafficking side, I think that's new, like last 10 years, 15 years,
something like that. I mean, it's an all-encompassing term a little bit, right? So, because technically, child trafficking is underneath human trafficking, and then you've got labor trafficking and all these other things. Yeah.
So, but when you're talking about child sex trafficking, I mean, these are innocent young girls and boys, girls and boys that are used in the sex trade. That is just, I have to be honest, Sound of Freedom is a movie that certainly put a face to all of it for me. Probably the same for a lot of other people. And I know there have been stories after stories after stories after stories, but at least that put a face on it for me. Unfortunately, Aaron, I think a lot of people have forgotten that movie and how they felt when they watched it because something else has now come up. So something else comes to mind when they think of something to get involved with. That's human nature.
That, unfortunately, I mean, we have an ADD country, right? And, cell phones do it. Right. I mean, it just happens. Now, I mean, and I want to be clear, too. I mean, obviously, other things that we support and oppose have taken kind of center stage right now. I mean, school choice is the biggest, hottest thing that everybody's talking about in the state of Tennessee, where the governor's unveiled an initiative. The General Assembly's talking about it. You've got people opposing it, supporting it, whacking on it, blah, 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 blah. That the work that we've been doing has been ongoing on it. And from an advocacy standpoint, I don't unveil legislation till it's done for this, especially on this, right? I also don't have the resources of the entire giant government, right? But that's what we've been doing.
So the law, though, that you guys helped get passed, did what exactly?
Well, it just showed the state of Tennessee and the world that child trafficking is exploding, right? I mean, that's one thing that's in there. It also shows the one thing it's kind of unspoken in there is they need more resources to gather more data. I want to see county by county breakdowns in the future, right? And we knew this, right? We and as an advocacy group, we talk to the bureaucrats, we talk to the legislators, we talk to the governor's office, and we have great working relationships with them. The thing that we've communicated is we knew there would be gaps, right? And you can look at it and go, okay, well, I don't, if you know what you're looking at, there's some gaps, right? So the thing is they need more resources to gather more data. There needs to be, one of the things I honestly think from a logistics standpoint that's probably helpful in the future is a unified court system. So you can put all the cases together, right? And I know that is something that has been talked about in the past, particularly by I believe, Speaker Sexton, and I know from several other members of leadership and legislators that I've spoken with. But that's what this did. We hadn't had a report in a decade.
And now we have one that is quite... When I saw the numbers, you were here when I saw it raw, first word out of my mouth, damn.
Yeah.
And I'm not laughing. I mean, that is alarming. And it's great to get more data. But the truth of the matter is we need more people. We need more people to rescue. We need more people to arrest. We need more people to prosecute. That's where the real work is here. And from this first report, boy, I'm ready to see some sick SOBs.
Amen.
I can't even say what I want to happen to them. But arrest, please. Good Lord. All right, we have to take a break here. We're going to talk more about this, and we're going to have someone who's actually been on the front lines with rescue missions and what have you that can tell some stories here. And that's Aaron Spradlin, who is also with Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition, along with Aaron Gilbranson. That's our conversation today. Stick around. I'm Pamela Furr, in for Brian Wilson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Six o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories right now. 57 degrees on Music Row. Latest forecast traffic report coming up in 5 minutes. Some breaking news, an update on Metro Nashville's police department investigation into who leaked the Covenant school shooter's writings. Police Chief John Drake says the police department has, quote, exhausted all available investigative avenues to identify the person who leaked photographs containing 3 pages of writings from the Covenant school shooter. They did say that no current MNPD employees or employees of any partner agencies released the image of the manifesto. The investigation did reveal that a former employee took the photos. That person doesn't have to talk under current Metro policy. There is an ongoing legal battle on whether these writings should be released to the public, both sides of the aisle posing arguments. Monday, October 16th, the Court of Appeals heard why both Covenant families and Metro government believe they have the right to weigh in on whether the so-called manifesto is released. A separate judge will decide if and what parts of the document go public. Students, faculty, and staff are set to return to Covenant School in January. Right now in Tennessee, Channel 4's Marissa Sulik sat down with officials at the county level discussing the Governor Lee's school voucher proposal.
Today we sat down with Cheatham County Mayor Kerry McCarver. He says if this voucher program is passed, they could lose about $6,800 per student that goes to a private school. McCarver says that could be detrimental on public school funding. The county will look to get that money back through property taxes. McCarver says if they go with that option, they could add close to 6 cents to the tax rate.
And the program would give 20,000 Tennessee students $7,000 each to attend private institutions. Crime in Tennessee. News 2 says that a former middle school basketball coach at Smith County Middle pleaded guilty to several sex crimes involving minors. Jamal Carter has been sentenced to 20 years in the Tennessee Department of Correction and will be labeled as a violent sex offender. 15 counts against him. In the same week, a Texas woman was granted an abortion by a judge. A similar lawsuit has been announced in Kentucky. Dave Packer.
A Kentucky woman, 8 weeks pregnant and identified in the complaint only as Jane Doe, suing the state because, as Kentucky ACLU attorney Amber Duke says, she's decided that the best course of action for herself and her family is to terminate the pregnancy.
Jane Doe and all Kentuckians should have the power to make decisions about their bodies and to have access to essential health care in their communities.
Kentucky now has some of the most restrictive abortion laws in the country.
Right now in Tennessee, the victims from the plane crash yesterday in Giles County have now been identified as Jenny and James Blaylock from Knoxville. The crash happened near the Marshall County line around 11 a.m. yesterday. The father and daughter were the only 2 people on board the plane at the time of that crash. That is the latest news. Weather and traffic next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 6:08. I'm Pamela Furr in for Brian Wilson on the drive. Glad to have you with us today. 615-737-9986 is the phone number. We're not taking your calls right at this moment, but we will take your super text. That super text line is open and right in front of me. Mason? See, I almost forgot your name again. It's Mason. Mason. All right. Producer Mason is in the house. He's in for Chris Weber, who's off until what, Wednesday?
I believe
Is that right?
so, yeah.
Okay. And then over there, it's Mag Morey, who loves it when I sing to him. When
My favorite.
The
Moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie.
That's Mac Morey. All right. Woo! Thank you, Mac, for being here. Thank you for keeping us updated on the news. So we're going to get into some serious things here. It's pretty heavy stuff, and I don't know if you've seen the report. We'll get to that report here in just a minute about human trafficking and child human trafficking. But in the studio with me this afternoon, we have my two favorite Aarons of all time. It's Aaron Spradlin and Aaron Goldbranson with the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition. Guys, thank you for being with me today.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you, as always.
You may speak. So this report came out, I guess, yesterday. And I got to tell you, it hit me right between the eyes when I saw some of the statistics. And what's alarming is that you're both telling me, one on the air, one off the air, that the numbers are actually even higher than what I'm seeing. The report, it's the first of its kind released in more than a decade here in the state of Tennessee from the TBI. It revealed there were 518 minor sex trafficking reports by November the 5th, and the agency notes that reports of minor sex trafficking dramatically increased from 66 in 2016 to over 600 by 2021. That blows my mind, and we're talking Middle Tennessee, right? Or is that all of the state of Tennessee?
That's the state of Tennessee.
That is the state of Tennessee. What it also revealed is that Middle Tennessee, this area, it's greater than any other area in the state. That blows my mind. I know I've told you both this. When I think of child human trafficking, I think of little girls from Mexico or from other countries being trafficked around. I don't think of runaways. I don't think of Middle Tennessee being a hotbed. And I think I'm just like a lot of other people here in Tennessee. It's alarming. Since Aaron Spradlin just got here, you've been on the front lines, not only from this coalition standpoint, but even actually rescuing children. Tell me why this is such a problem here in Tennessee, and why a lot of us have a different idea of what it actually is.
Well, first and foremost, it's because of the highway systems. I mean, that is the number one reason it's so much easier, the interstate systems, because I think it's anywhere, 32 states in the United States in 8 hours, something to that effect. So It's easy to transport, north, south, east, and west. Of course, 40 rolling through 65, 75. That takes you everywhere you need to go throughout the country. And the thing is, it's a thing that's not so easy to detect when you're on the highways. Right? Now, if you go out there, you see the Drug Task Force whenever you travel 40 east or west. They're out there looking for certain things.
Right.
But some of the signs that you need to see are so hidden right in front of your eyes. Like they like to use 15-pack vans that may have a church on the side of it, even though it's not a church.
Yeah, I would have never thought of that.
Who's going to pull over a church bus full of kids?
Right.
Nobody.
And
so that's what makes it
because you think
easy.
it's a youth group going to some youth camp somewhere or a revival at some church somewhere.
Right.
Yeah. Wow.
But that's the biggest reason. And as we grow and the more and more attention that we get here in the city of Nashville, especially with conventions, the NFL draft that was here not too long ago, which TBI, the FBI, Homeland Security, Metro Nashville, they put a dragnet over this city, and it was exceptional how much they stopped from possibly happening here with that influx of people. The Super Bowl was the number one trafficking day of the year, wherever it is, because people travel to that from all over the place, and most of them people have what? Money. And so,
and they're not with a spouse or a partner or what have you, and that's when they everybody kind of gets in a little bit of trouble. But what disturbs me is that you're talking about kids here. You're not talking about grown adults who decide to go into the sex business. You're talking about kids who didn't have any choice.
Right.
That disturbs me.
And I believe I heard as I was coming in with all 8 million people on the highway that you were talking about, what did you had mentioned before as far as not being their choice?
Yeah.
Right? You had mentioned, as I was coming up, you were talking about prostitution, the sex business. It had a different name. Human trafficking is now what we're hearing more and more over the last decade. So the fact is, people want to classify this into the prostitution, right? Prostitution is not human trafficking.
And see, that's where I think a lot of people, again, you get it all kind of smushed together.
Right.
I know that I do. So I can't be the only one.
But there, and I heard Aaron say earlier that we've taken people out with us to show them where these problems
and y'all
are.
wanted to take me out to show that too. And I do want to see that.
Right, absolutely. Please.
I think it's going to open my eyes, and actually it's probably going to break my heart. That's what I envision happening. But
you'll find young women, over the age of 18 that are out there on the streets too, against their will. And it's not because that one day they woke up and they were 18 and they said, you know what, I think I'm going to be a prostitute today. No, they probably started when they were 14.
And they don't know any other life?
They can't get out. Because if they try to get out, somebody's made an example, right? So in this town, there have been severe beatings, there have been murders, there have been dismemberments to send a message to, you're not getting out of this because you're in my stable, you're making me my money, and if you try, you remember your best friend or your sister over here, watch what I do to her, because she doesn't make as much. So watch what I do, and they're stuck there, and then they're obviously hooked on something, and that is a horrible thing to come off of. So like I had one girl we went and got in West Nashville a couple of years ago. I had to go get her 3 times because she kept going back for the heroin because she didn't want to be sick anymore. It wasn't the high, it was the coming down. And thank God we did get her to finally come with us and get out, and now she's healthy. She's 3 years, raising her child, and she's amazing, and I love her for having the strength to get out.
But
that's one of millions.
Are there a lot that don't get out that you've tried to help and they just refuse?
Yes.
I can't even. I have so many questions that are rolling around in my head.
Well, let me point something out real quick too.
Sure.
And these girls and children that are wind up being murdered in these situations, like he just mentioned, they'll never show up as a human trafficking victim in a report.
The numbers that we're hearing right now that I just mentioned a moment ago, going from 66 to 600, the truth is those numbers are much higher.
Well, if you take the average runaways in the state of Tennessee, there's 600 runaways a month. And 10% of them fall victim to trafficking. That's not my statistic. I believe that's a national statistic. And so that's 60 more a month. That's 720 a year. That's 720 more that have fallen victim.
Well, what are we doing to stop it? And now that we have these statistics in the state of Tennessee, do you have DAs who are saying, okay, this stops and this stops today? Do you have sheriff's deputies or sheriffs or police chiefs who are saying this stops today? This is not going to happen in my county anymore.
I believe it's going to come from the report to wake them up to it. Okay.
That's where you start first to say, these are the statistics.
Here's where we are.
Now, do something about it.
And then that obviously ties into the Faith and Freedom mission and policy and trying to create new legislation with this wonderful report that we finally have, because it's our baseline, as Aaron said earlier. So we can go with our lawmakers and say, all right, these sheriff's departments in this particular region, and that's your district, representative or senator, how do we help them? Right? Do we increase funding? How do the counties get involved? And we like to tout our good buddy Mayor Jacobs over in Knox County.
Mayor Jacobs, yeah.
Mayor Jacobs increased his law enforcement by $1 billion and didn't raise taxes. Is that right, Aaron?
It was $2 billion, but yeah.
$2 billion and didn't have to raise taxes for his law enforcement.
Yeah. I think it was a 34% raise overall for them.
No kidding.
So individual leadership can do that, not having to go to the level of, brand new policy.
And not having to raise your taxes. But what do you do? Because this is not one, but 2, 3, 4 people on the super text line have said, but what about those DAs who just let them go? All right, Aaron Branson has some choice words for those.
Get rid of Glenn Funk and Steve Mulroy.
He's in Memphis.
Yes. Yeah. They are literally unleashing hell on Memphis and Nashville. They're doing nothing about it. Not just they're not doing anything about it, but they're enabling it. They're also depressing the daylights out of the morale of law enforcement.
Yeah, that is true.
And you've got people getting not just, we're talking about horribly raped and enslaved, right? This is what human and child trafficking is. But not just that. You have the murders. You have everything that goes with it. You have additional people being hooked on drugs that maybe not getting into trafficking. Those two are the worst people in the entire state of Tennessee. They are the quintessential example of what George Soros looks for in a DA to fund and sow chaos upon the world. They need to go.
They're not going anywhere anytime soon, guys. That's the problem. They keep getting elected. No one does anything about it. So what do you do? All right, I'll tell you what. We'll answer that question when we come back. It is 6:20. I am Pamela Furr, in for Brian Wilson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Today's show happened because I saw a comment. He said, why don't you do something on doves and dove fields and how to find them and things like that. So
all right.
Good idea. It's past opening day, but like you said, it can work.
Yeah.
Because the season is long. It runs for 90 days and there's 3 segments, so we're going to cover all that today. Let's rattle off the season. September 1 through September 28th is the first segment of Dove, and then October 14th through November 5th, and then December 8th through January 15th. 15 is your bag limit. So September 1 is opening day, and that's at noon in Tennessee.
September 1st has been one of those days. I mean, you'll see guys. I mean, they'll take off work. Have big cooking and getting together with friends, and it's kind of neat to see.
Yeah.
Historically, it's a huge social event. I'd say the majority of the hunters probably hunt opening day, opening weekend, and then won't pick up a shotgun until next year. So,
we have 2 other segments besides this one. Running in October, and then even all the way through January 15th. There's a lot of opportunity throughout the year.
On our website, tnwildlife.org, on our homepage, you can click the button there to dove hunting info and fields is what the button's titled. It's got all the information on dove hunting. You can find the fields there. So let's talk about how to find a field. You click on Region 2, it pulls up the options that are available, and get down to Bark Camp Barrens, and you see it's open statewide. So the hunting's not over there. There's still opportunity. Even though we had a big opening day, let it die down a little bit and get back in there. You're going to have some good hunting, I think, there, sounds like, anyway.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 6:24. I'm Pamela Furr, in for Brian Wilson on the drive. Thank you for being with us today. A heavy topic today, but I think it's an important topic. There's a new report that's come out that human trafficking in Tennessee shows abuse of minors rose over 800% in the last 5 years. That is just mind-blowing to me. And so we were talking just a few minutes ago. We have Aaron Spradlin and Aaron Goldbranson in the studio with us today from the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition. Thank you guys for being here. But you also are in charge of Mission America, which is an organization dedicated to child trafficking, correct?
Correct.
And rescuing people.
Right.
So you were telling me, tell me about Williamson County. Williamson County is a hotbed for child trafficking, or am I asking the wrong question?
Williamson County, let's tell you a
I
story.
mean, that blows my mind too.
Why? Because they have money?
Well, you have the most affluent people, right?
And that's who you find are really big in doing this.
They're the ones spending the money.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to tell you a story. We were working a case over in southeast Nashville at a really shady hotel. Probably 4 years ago, right? And so we come through the hotel, and I've told this before on Matt's show, but I'll tell it to a different audience. And we're going through the hotel. There's 17 cars in the parking lot. And now this is a flea bag hotel, right? They have blankets. Motel. It's a as my grandmother would say, a motel. So anyway, there's it's so bad that they have blankets instead of curtains, right? I mean, it's just a horribly nasty hotel. 17 cars in the parking lot, 9 of them from Williamson County.
Wow.
Now we should know that anybody that lives in the bubble is not going to go to a hotel like that for sleep. They're there for a reason, right?
Correct,
So, I mean, and there's a reason to the drive of this. And I'll tell a quick story. When I worked undercover overseas, I didn't even have to go look for the pimps. I could get off the plane, go to my hotel, and I would be approached by somebody because I'm Caucasian. I present myself as wealthy while I'm there, and they come to me because they're used to Americans coming to these places with money and doing these things. So why, now that it's gotten easier in the United States, why do I got to go to Peru when I can just run over to Antioch? Or that, there's more to just trafficking than the sex part. There's child porn. Right? And the creation of child porn, the distribution of child porn, the viewing of child porn, all of that is part of this as well. In Williamson County in October of 2023, we had 4 men arrested, and 2 of them pretty prominent, arrested for distributing child porn. You had a soccer coach over 20 years who was in Williamson County who was busted. I think they had said he had assaulted 10 boys throughout his time, and they believe there were more, and he may not have been alone. Then you have the gymnastics coach that was raping children in Franklin. And so let's move out of Franklin. Let's move over to Johnson City. In 2020, we had 8 arrested over there by a TBI sting. See, when the resources are in hand, they can do their job.
Right.
And then in Smyrna, 16 arrested by TBI. And then
this is all for child human trafficking.
Now, the biggest one in the last decade was in East Tennessee. There were 32 arrests in May of 2016 in Operation Someone Like Me, and that was a TBI sting. And one of the leaders of the trafficking organization was the youth pastor of the church.
Which I need to jump in on that. So one of the things that the leftists like to do when they attack us and the work that we do is to go, you guys never talk about the stuff going on in the church. Now, the thing is, they don't listen to us when we're out and about. So they just don't like a conservative group that's shedding light on an issue, and it drives us crazy. But we are happy to say, not happy, I mean, it's sad to say, but we have no problem saying things like, watch out for your youth pastor. I mean, I got to tell you, when I was a kid, I mean, I had a youth pastor tell me I had beautiful blue eyes, but I went home and I told my parents that he said that. It turned out years later that other people got molested because they didn't tell their parents that. Yeah. So, yeah, it happens in the church. It can be very, very bad in the church. This on my soapbox.
And the reason there's a spike, okay, the cell phone and the computer, when this was a horrible thing, and it was pedophilia, sociopathic child predators, right? As porn is at your fingertip whenever you want it, the dopamine needs to increase, right? So they go as risky as they can until they get to a point where now they're looking at child porn And now where do they go?
Yeah.
Because they have to experience it because that dopamine is not enough anymore.
Right.
And so that's why this is surging as it is
It
because of the
continues to
access.
grow, Yeah. And so, in fact, there was someone, who was the person? The news story was out this morning that someone has introduced legislation to actually put child restrictions on pornography that you can find on the internet. Who did you know who did that? I'm
Yep,
sorry.
State Representative Patsy Hazelwood, and we are very proud to be working with her on that issue.
Excellent. All right, let's do this. I got to take it. Can y'all stay for some more time? We have another 30 minutes. I think this is an important issue. As I said earlier, I'm going to say this again. Sound of Freedom, great movie. It puts, for me, a face to the innocence, right? The innocence that was rescued. But now that movie is off our radar, people aren't talking about this as much, which is just unfortunate for the innocents that need to be rescued. So that's why I'm bringing this. It's heavy for the holidays or what have you, but this is reality. This is the truth, and it's happening in our backyard. 6:30, I'm Pamela Furr on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 6:38. I'm Pamela Furr in for Brian Wilson on the drive on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. In studio with me, Aaron Spradlin and Aaron Goldbranson, both of the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition. I always want to say Faith and Family.
That happens a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It does, unfortunately. By the way, speaking of human trafficking, shout out to Brian Lewis and the boys over at Franklin's Cigar.
That's just wrong. I mean, why would you say that?
He can't help.
Oh, my God. But hello to you guys at the
they're good people
Franklin
over there.
Cigar. Yeah, absolutely. I've been there many times and have enjoyed others smoking around me, yes. And hello to all of you. But this topic certainly is pretty heavy and pretty serious. Some folks are asking on the super text line, we're talking about child human trafficking, and we're talking about this report that's come out, if you're just tuning in, from the TBI. They released a new human trafficking statistical report last week. And by the way, they're now required to do that because of legislation that you guys helped get passed, correct?
Correct.
Yes. All right. So this report revealed a sharp increase in human trafficking of minors in Tennessee in a 5-year period, up 809%, according to these statistics from 2016 to 2021. That doesn't even include, obviously, the last 2 years. And these numbers are probably not quite as accurate as they could be. The number is actually more. That's
Right.
what you guys have
Agreed.
said.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So people are asking, how can I get involved? How can I help? Because if you're waiting on DAs to take care of this, we might be waiting way too long. What can we do to help? And that's an honest question.
Well, the first thing you need to do is you need to educate yourself on what to look for, right? Listen, up until 2016, I didn't know what this was. I had no idea. I saw the movie Taken with
Oh,
Liam
yeah,
Neeson.
that's right.
That's all I knew. I didn't know anything else about it. And then in 2016, I was sort of given a directive, and I took it, and I kept going with it, and it started opening my eyes to everything. But the things that you have to look for, when you have educators in schools, they're taught to look for abuse, correct?
Mm-hmm.
No matter what school you're in, whether it's private, public.
You go through that training
Christian,
to know what to look for.
Go
Yes.
through the training, know what
Mhm.
to look for. Well, this is something that needs to be added to the training.
To the list.
Because there are different signs. I joke about it when you go to the grocery store or you go to the Target and your significant other goes inside. I see a lot of men sitting in their car, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're sitting in their car waiting forever, whenever she's going to come back out. Watch the parking lots. Watch the nefarious activities that happen. And you'll be amazed how many people look a little bit shady out of nowhere. I mean, from the Cool Springs Mall in Williamson County to Target in Antioch, it doesn't matter. It's a Target, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've been in the mall in Cool Springs, and we actually found a girl from Moldova that was being trafficked in the mall.
No kidding.
From Moldova. I mean, that's a big, long trip, but then once you start, and you can go to various places, the Polaris Project will tell you, or the Homeland Security website will tell you what to look for. All you got to do is type in signs of human trafficking. You get 16 pages of things that you can look at to understand what to look for. That's a start. Right? To tell your friends and family that this actually exists, right? That's the one thing I ask whenever I speak about this anywhere. Tell 5 people, and then they're going to tell 5 people. So you know that this is a real thing. And now I always get a naysayer. Oh, that's not happening here. It doesn't happen here.
Well, I put myself in that category. I would have, before I met you guys, I would have been in that category. I would have said, that's happening elsewhere, probably closer to the southern border. It's not happening in Tennessee. And obviously I'm wrong.
Which thank God the Bureau came out and put out the report to prove to us, the people that don't know, this is a horrible thing that's happening here.
Yeah.
And it goes back to resources like we talked about before. You could get involved with organizations. You can get involved with our organization, MissionAmericaFoundation.com. Come there, fill out the I want to be involved. If you are a victim, fill that out too, because there's a place I need help is in there. And then we work with another organization, a phenomenal entity here called Rescue One Global. Rescue One Global is restoration and healing. And the people that work over there are doing a heck of a job trying to to get as many people healthy as they can, children and young ladies, and either relocating them or putting them in their care where they are. And their head of operation is a hammer. Her name's Harmony Jones, and her husband is in and out of our team and works with us too. And they have the passion, the drive, the heart, and that's the other side. You can rescue 1,000 children, but where do you take them?
Yeah. What happens? Where do they go?
Because we're busting at the seams at DCS.
Yeah, and not and there have been so many reports of the neglect and abuse even at DCS here in Tennessee. So that would be the last place I would want them to be. That's
a
being
whole
honest.
other show,
yeah.
Pamela.
It really is.
Because we could talk about that for hours.
Well, so they can get involved. What would be the first thing to look for? If I were trying to keep my eyes open, I see somebody shady at the mall, that's one thing. But, I mean, is there something else? If I'm looking at a guy with a little girl around, is there something that would be a clue that this doesn't look quite right here that I could keep my eyes open for?
Well, unfortunately, in this day and age, in that wonderful PC world, you can't profile.
Yeah.
I profile every day, and I will be blasted for saying that. But I do. I profile because if I have a 55-year-old Latino man with a little blonde girl, that doesn't look right. Vice versa. A 55-year-old white man with a little Latino girl, that doesn't look right. One of the people that attended one of our speakings about a year and a half ago was in Brentwood. Her and her daughter were shopping. They were going to get some food sitting in the car. A car pulled in. It was out of state tags. It was winter. It was cold. We had a little ice. This girl gets out of the car. She's wearing Daisy Dukes and a halter top in the cold to go in and use the restroom at the restaurant. The mother in the car tells her daughter to get in the floorboard. You stay here, lock the doors, I'll be right back. She goes into the bathroom, talks to the little girl, finds out she's not supposed to be with this person and that she's in danger. 3 minutes later, the BPD, Brentwood PD, is on the scene. He's going to prison and she's going back to Texas to go home.
Oh, wow.
Because a woman and her daughter saw something and said something.
She didn't even live here.
No.
Wow.
But she saw it and she saved that girl's life.
Wow.
Because she saw something from hearing, hey, this is what it just, if it looks like a duck, it walks like a duck, it's a duck.
Right.
We've had multiple things where we knock and talk when we're doing mission work, as we call it, and we're out there, hotel to hotel. We were in Jackson, Tennessee. Opened the door because we were looking for a missing person. The guy in the hotel and the girl in the hotel did not belong together. We don't have any powers to do anything, but we have the power to call the law.
Yeah, you can tell somebody.
And we called Jackson PD. They did a health and welfare. She wasn't supposed to be with him. And you can be involved. You can, the healing is there. The volunteers are needed all over, especially like in the Rescue One system, because there's so many people to be there for, right? The Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition is another one for adult women that are coming out and need to get healthy and healed. And that they're a phenomenal entity. There are organizations around the state that are actually doing this. I'm lucky enough that we have the Mission America Foundation, but more importantly, I get to work with this guy over here on the policies through the Faith and Freedom Coalition to knock this stuff out from the legal side and start burying not only the pimps, but the Johns under the jail.
Under the jail. All right, so then that is the next question. You've got this report from the TBI that shows the alarming statistics. What's the next step from a Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition for 2024?
We're going to find ways. We're crafting legislation that will create ways to alternatively prosecute both the traffickers and the Johns when the people like Glenn Funk and Steve Mulroy won't. There's going to be increased penalties. There's as we just mentioned, the age verification, because of course, child porn does grooming. It victimizes them. It leads them into a life of trafficking. It is trafficking. There's things like that. We got about 8 or 10 bills that are going to come out. We're going to talk about publicly that are just going to gut child and human trafficking in the state of Tennessee.
I hope so.
It's going down. And we got the support of Leader Jack Johnson, William Lamberth. We're working with the General Assembly. The leadership, 30 for those of you in the audience right now who didn't see this during special session, probably the coolest moment was we had 30 members of the General Assembly, along with Congressman Andy Ogle, stand alongside with us and physically declare war on child and human trafficking in the state of Tennessee. So we're getting this done. The gauntlet has been laid down. If anybody,
and this is nonpartisan. I mean, I would think it would be nonpartisan to want to get this passed. Yes, to get these people arrested, the book thrown at them, and these DAs who are not prosecuting like they're supposed to. I would think this would be nonpartisan. Is it not?
Oh,
I'm seeing looks.
It's nonpartisan in the fact that there's jerks on the Marxist left and some jerks who call themselves on the right that are opposed to this stuff. But by and large, no. I mean, when you actually get to the votes, sure, it's typically. I mean, this particular report bill was like 85-1 in the House, and it was 27 or so to nothing in the Senate. There were people that just abstained. But no, I mean, let's be very, very clear here. The Marxist left does nothing about this stuff. Steve Mulroy, Glenn Funk, as we're going to continue beating up on them, are Marxist George Soros prosecutors, right? They don't do anything. The left enables trafficking. Joe Biden is the trafficker in chief based on his policies. I'm not saying he physically does this, right. Those of you in the wingnut world, but his policies result in this stuff both at home and abroad. And no, there are Republicans not in our General Assembly that don't want to do anything about this, but it's the Marxist left that creates this problem.
Yeah. All right, guys, we have about a minute left before I'm going to have to say goodbye. Again, if people want to help, there's your organization, Mission America. Is that the website, missionamerica.com? What is it?
MissionAmericaFoundation.com.
I apologize. MissionAmericaFoundation.com.
And then all of the socials are listed there because I forget them when I try to say them. Yeah.
No worries. And then you have the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition. I'm going to get it right. I swear. Go ahead.
At TN Faith Freedom, at TN Faith Freedom, all social media, and tnfaithfreedom.com.
All right, good deal. Thank you guys for being in the studio with me. I think that's going to wrap it up for me. I'm about a minute away? So I have a few things to say. First of all, say a prayer for me. I'm having surgery on Wednesday. It may be quite a while before I'm back on the air here at WTN, but you can find me on socials as well. I'm terrified. Have y'all ever had major surgery?
I've had 0 surgeries, thank
right,
God.
So I'm a little terrified. I've had surgery before on this knee, but this is total knee replacement. So I am terrified, but I know that the doctors will be fine. They do these every single dang day. But say a little prayer. Have yourself a merry little Christmas. Stay in touch. You can find me, Pamela, at 997WTN.com. You can also find me at Americans for Prosperity, Tennessee. Go to tnschoolchoice.org to tell your legislature how you feel about that idea as well. And that's it for me. Have yourself a great day. All right? We're done? All right, good deal. News is next, and then we have who? Mark Levin, right? Mark Levin.
Yes, ma'am.
Right after that. Right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. We know that diversification is an important part of the investing process, but how do you reduce risk of a portfolio through diversification? Well, you use correlations. Now think of bathing suit sales and suntan oil sales. They tend to move together, right? Think of bathing suit sales versus winter coat sales. More dissimilar movement, and that's the idea. But why is diversification so important? Well, think about it this way. Everybody would like to have this happen with their investments. They just go straight up. But what we know is this is really what tends to happen. Markets may go way up and then down, or down, then way up. Now let's say if we isolate parts of that curve right there, and the first curve right there, and the second curve right there. If you're putting money away for retirement, every time you put money in, if this is what's going on, you're buying more shares. Then just before you retire, the market goes up, you're really happy. If, on the other hand, you keep paying a higher and higher price and then the market goes down, you're really sad. And we can't choose what's going to happen with the market next. But what we can do is what we know through academic research, and there are Nobel Prizes awarded for this, is we can look for things that tend to move in dissimilar fashion. And what happens when we do that, we can reduce the volatility of the portfolio, hence bringing those curves in. Now that's the idea. Now if you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. Or you can call 615-851-1950.